Hey guys! This is part 2 of What If Naruto Did Not Take the Chuunin Exam. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start! Chapter 5: Meeting the Slug Princess. It had been a week since the confrontation against the Akatsuki. Naruto had dropped the matter after the third day, and was currently focusing on finishing the second step of the Rasengan. Hinata had finished the day before, and she was waiting for Naruto to catch up. Naruto was very close. He focused on the ball in his hand. As he did, he moved his fingers slightly and began to channel the chakra into the ball. After a few seconds, the ball explodes violently, knocking Naruto on his butt as it did. He shook his head slightly. "Well, that was a lot more explosive than I meant it to be," Jiraiya spoke up. "Well, either way, you did well, Naruto. Now it's time for step 3. He blew up 3 balloons, tossing 2 to Hinata and Naruto before holding his own up. "This is step 3. The young couple stood there staring at the balloon, waiting for something to happen. It was then Jiraiya held up his other hand and a fully formed Rasengan appeared. "This is what is happening in the balloon. The first step is rotation. You did this by rotating the water in the water balloon so it would pop. The second is power. You popped the rubber ball with pure power. The final step is containment. If you do it right, you will get this." He lunged at a tree on the side of the road and forced the sphere of chakra against the trunk, shattering it. "That is the Rasengan, an A-rank ninjutsu." He turned towards them and said, "The third step is the hardest part. It is 5 times more difficult than the last 2. I honestly don't expect either of you to finish it during this mission." The two looked at the destruction in shock. This was what the ninjutsu they were learning was able to do. Suddenly Shingetsu spoke up, interrupting the moment. "You know, you never showed these two what Tsunade looked like. How are they supposed to help out with finding her? I mean, I know what she looks like, but the kids don't." Jiraiya froze. He hadn't even realized he hadn't shown them an image of Tsunade. "You're completely right, Shingetsu." He reached into his pouch and pulled out a bounty poster with Tsunade's image on it. "This is Tsunade Senju." The two genin looked at the poster before Hinata said, Jiraiya-san, that's a bounty poster." Jiraiya chuckled awkwardly. "Yeah, you see, Tsunade loves to gamble. But sadly she is no good at all. The only time she wins is if something bad is about to happen." Naruto spoke up. "You said she was your teammate, but she looks no older than 25, what the hell, pervy sage?" "Well, you see, Tsunade has developed a unique form of the henge that makes her choose what age she wants to appear as. She mostly uses it to avoid debt collectors." Naruto facepalmed. "So this is what the great Sannin have been reduced to. One of them is a traitorous pedophile. The next is a gambler who never wins. While the strongest is a pervert who does not respect women's privacy. What is it with powerful shinobi being weirdos?" He looked at Hinata as he said, "Hinata-chan, I'm going to trust you to keep me from becoming a weirdo like pervy sage." Jiraiya's face impacted the ground as Hinata giggled. The perverted sage jumped back up as he said, "Hey, I'm not an ordinary pervert. I'm a super pervert." Naruto hung his head. "What was my dad smoking the day he chose you to be my godfather?" The discussion ended and the two genin went back to trying to work on the Rasengan. 2 hours later, the outskirts of Tanzaku, they arrived at the Tanzaku quarters. As they did, Jiraiya spoke up. "Okay, Tsunade should be in this town. I have a really good feeling about it." Naruto deadpanned. "That's what you said about the last 2 towns, pervy sage." "Yeah, and I was close. My contacts said we were just a couple days behind her." For those wondering, no, the castle wasn't destroyed by Orochimaru in this AU. I just never understood why he would draw attention to himself like that when he was in a weakened state. They soon found themselves at a casino where Jiraiya was asking the staff members about Tsunade. As Naruto and Hinata waited, Naruto looked at the slot machine in front of him, before pulling out his wallet. Hinata looked at Naruto as she asked, "Naruto-kun, what are you doing?" He spoke as he slipped a coin into the slot. "I just want to try, Hinata-chan. I mean, Tsunade is addicted to this. I want to know why she enjoys it so much, Databayo." With those words he pulled the lever. A few moments later, he had hit the jackpot as tokens flowed out of the machine. An hour later, Naruto was walking next to Jiraiya and Hinata happily with a full wallet and a sealing scroll full of cash. After he had hit the jackpot on the slot machine, he had then hit a few more, by the time Jiraiya had come back from questioning the staff. Naruto had emptied out 20 slot machines as well as tried his hand at poker. About 5 hands of poker later, and Naruto's winnings were over 10 million ryu. Naruto couldn't stop grinning. He had basically won the equivalent of 2 S-rank missions in an hour. Jiraiya was looking at Naruto with what could amount to respect. Damn kid, you didn't lose a single time. You're the exact opposite of Tsunade. Hee, it was really easy. I'll probably store most of this money away for a rainy day. I might try another casino later on. Hinata smiled. She was happy to see her Naruto so happy. Just make sure to stop when you're ahead, Naruto-kun. You don't want to end up like Tsunade-sama. Don't worry, Hinata-chan, I won't get addicted. Jiraiya, who was leading them towards a restaurant, said. Let's stop in here and get something to eat. Maybe we can get some more information on where Tsunade is. As Jiraiya pulled back the flaps on the shop, he froze and said, No way. He turned to the 2 genin. I found Tsunade. The 2 genin followed the perverted sage into the restaurant to see Tsunade sitting at a table with her apprentice, getting completely plastered. Jiraiya went up to her as he said, Well, look who it is. Nice to see you again, Tsunadeheim. The blonde woman looked up, her cheeks flushed from the alcohol. Ha, Jiraiya. So what is today, a reunion of the Sannin? First Orochimaru, and now you. The Sannin and 2 genin both straightened up when they heard that. Naruto did all he could to keep himself from frowning. He knew he was nowhere near strong enough to kill Orochimaru. But it didn't stop him from wanting to put down the rogue Sannin. Not only because he killed the Hokage, but because the man was a threat that had attacked the village. The 3 sat at the table and quickly ordered food and made small talk. After getting their food, Jiraiya smiled at Tsunade and asked, What did Orochimaru want? Tsunade pulled out a deck of cards and began to shuffle them. He told me that sensei was dead, by his own hands. Is it true? Jiraiya sighed as he took a sip of his sake that had arrived with his meal as he said. He thought for a moment on what to say to Tsunade. He was certain she was withholding information. After a few seconds he decided to just tell her the full story. Not exactly. Sensei sacrificed his life to stop Orochimaru. He had used the Edo Tensei to revive your grandfather and great-uncle to fight Sensei. Upon hearing that, Tsunade's eyes went wide. She could barely keep down the anger. Orochimaru hadn't mentioned that. Jiraiya continued after finishing off his saucer of sake. Sensei used the Reaper Death Seal to seal away both of them along with Orochimaru's arms. Jiraiya didn't know this, but his decision to reveal this information would lead to a major change in the very timeline. Tsunade growled hearing that. She was pissed. Orochimaru dared to use her family as weapons. Fuck his offer. When she next saw him, she was going to kill the damn snake. She spoke slowly, trying to keep the anger out of her voice. So Jiraiya, why are you here? Jiraiya sighed before he spoke. Tsunade, you've been requested to return to Konoha and become director of the hospital. The new Hokage is planning to approve of your medic nin program. I was sent to retrieve you and bring you back. Tsunade frowned as she said. Who exactly is the new Hokage? Jiraiya grinned as he said. I'm the next Hokage, Tsunade. Don't worry, I already promised I won't peep while on duty. He continued that speech in his mind. I'll just send shadow clones to the hot spring disguised as Kakashi and Ebisu. Little did Jiraiya know, this plan would get an unexpected helping hand from Naruto that would make it foolproof. But that's a story for another time. Tsunade snorted but then turned and focused on the 2 genin. Who are the kids, Jiraiya? I thought you weren't going to take any more apprentices after Minato died. Not to mention, the girl is a Hyuga. You always said you wouldn't teach a Hyuga. Something about having sticks the size of a tree shoved up their asses. Hinata blushed at that description. Although she couldn't argue against it, as it was an apt description of her former clan. Jiraiya chuckled before he said, This is Hinata Yule, the former heiress of the Hyuga clan. Former heiress? Yeah, Hayashi had to banish her to protect her. The elders were trying to have her tossed into the cadet family and married off to a noble. Tsunade shook her head. Damn, just when I thought the Hyuga main family couldn't get any worse. So who's the blonde kid? Before Jiraiya could introduce Naruto, Hinata stood up and headed to the bathroom. Once she was gone, Jiraiya grinned. This is Hinata's boyfriend, as well as my apprentice, Naruto Uzumaki. Tsunade's eyes went wide as she stared at Naruto for a few seconds, shocked. Shizen dropped her chopsticks while Tenten oinked softly. Suddenly Tsunade lunged at Naruto. In Konoha, Sasuke struck the training dummy hard. As he did, he grit his teeth to ignore the pain. How dare Itachi enter the village? How dare they not tell him so he could avenge his clan? Didn't those fools understand he had to avenge his family? It was just more proof that the village was holding him back. Suddenly footsteps sounded behind him. He turned to see Sakura coming up behind him. She looked at him and spoke, her voice cheerful as she said, "Sasuke-kun, I'm ready to begin training." She was no longer walking with crutches, but she now had a permanent limp. But it wasn't to the point of being completely debilitating. She was the only one who understood what he was going through. What happened in the forest of death had changed her. She no longer was a weak fangirl. Now she was obsessed with revenge just like him. She had begun to train in genjutsu using scrolls that Sasuke had retrieved from the Uchiha clan vault. Paired with the Senbon training she had been trained in by the retired shinobi her mother had hired. Well, she would make a good support for him in battle. The battle against Orochimaru had made him realize two things. First, that this village was holding him back. But until he had gotten everything he wanted from it, he would stay. The second was that even if he got stronger, he would not be able to take all opponents alone. That's why he had decided when he left the village, Sakura would be coming with him. Even with her limp, she would make the perfect partner for battle. She had already agreed. Once they had finished with this village, they would leave. Then once they had killed Itachi, they would set their sights on this village. The village that dared to deny him what he deserved. As these thoughts raced through his mind, the mark on his neck glowed red for a few seconds, and the seal holding it eroded a little more. But it went unnoticed to the Avenger, too lost in his thoughts of revenge. Back at the restaurant, Naruto was currently struggling in the grip of Tsunade. The slug Sannin had him gripped in an extremely tight hug. Sadly, his face was buried in her chest, which was blocking airflow, thus the struggling. He wasn't being helped because Jiraiya was laughing his ass off, Hinata was in the bathroom, and Shizen didn't dare to try and separate the two. All the while Tsunade is crying tears of joy. Happy that the closest thing she had to a grandson was alive. She had been told he had been killed by the Kyuubi during the sealing ritual. That it had managed to impale Naruto before being sealed away, thus killing them both as the Kyuubi was sealed into a dying host. As she hugged him and cried, she slightly swore revenge on Orochimaru for lying to her about Naruto. In an undisclosed location, Orochimaru was being treated by Kabuto when suddenly he sneezed and felt a shiver go up his back. Kabuto looked at the snake Sannin in confusion as he said, "Orochimaru-sama, are you coming down with something?" "I don't believe so, Kabuto-kun, but for some reason I feel like someone just walked over my grave." Back at the restaurant, after a couple of minutes of this, Naruto stopped struggling and just started twitching. That's when Shizen spoke up. Tsunade-sama, I don't think he can breathe." Tsunade looked down to see the twitching Naruto and let go of him. Naruto fell into his seat, his face blue as he took deep breaths. "I saw a long tunnel, at the end was a bright light. Mom and Dad were there waiting for me." Everyone's sweat dropped hearing that. They honestly hoped he was exaggerating, but oddly enough they couldn't tell if he was. It was at this point that Hinata returned to see a disheveled Naruto and an awkward group. What did I miss?" Several hours later, with Jiraiya and Tsunade, the two Sannin were currently drinking in a bar. Naruto and Hinata had escorted Shizen to where they were staying so she could book rooms for her and Tsunade. They were going to stay about a week. Tsunade had been absolute about that, wanting to play in the poker tournament. Though that wasn't the true reason. Jiraiya looked at Tsunade as he said, "So Tsunadeheim, what's the true reason you want to stay here for a week? Don't give me that lie about the poker tournament. It might have tricked Naruto and Hinata, but I know you too well." Tsunade sighed as she said, "As I said, I met Orochimaru earlier today. He wanted me to heal his arms. I assume it was the damage done by Sensei during their fight. He gave me a week to think about his offer." Jiraiya nodded. "What did he offer you?" Tsunade drained her cup of sake before she said, "He offered to revive Dan and my brother in exchange for healing his arms." Jiraiya frowned. "I'm guessing you're not going to take the offer?" Tsunade frowned. "Not after what I learned. He dared to use my family as weapons, not to mention, he was the one who lied to me about Naruto being dead. I trusted the bastard and it came back to bite me in the ass." Jiraiya shook his head. "It's not your fault. Back then everyone thought he was still a loyal shinobi. I can't help but worry what might have happened if Sensei hadn't found out when he did. Well, either way, I plan to teach that pale bastard a lesson. Jiraiya smirked. If you want, I'm more than willing to help out. Tsunade nodded. Thanks for that, you old perv. So tell me about Naruto. I want to learn more about him. I need to make up for leaving Kushina's son all alone. Jiraiya sighed as he muttered. You and me both. He then looked her in the eyes with a grin as he said, well, one thing I know for sure you'll like. Naruto has insane luck with gambling. Tsunade leaned forward, an eager gleam in her eyes. Tell me more. 4 days later, Naruto was in the woods outside of town, in a small clearing. He had been there for the past 4 hours. Surrounding him were around 60 shadow clones, all separated into teams working on their various projects. Back at the hotel were another 20 working on Fuinjutsu. For those who are wondering why he's using so few shadow clones to train when he can spam them to fill a field, there's quite a simple reason. Remember, the more clones he makes, the less chakra they have. So I think 80 clones doing chakra-based training were a good amount. There were around 20 that were practicing the next stage of chakra, kunai balancing. Naruto had been practicing this chakra control exercise for the past week. Each clone currently had 3 kunai balanced on their fingertips. Another 2 groups of clones, 10 each, were practicing the 2 previous stages of the Rasengan. Jiraiya had mentioned that it would help with his chakra control, not to mention Naruto had noticed that the faster he was able to complete the 2 previous steps, the easier it got for the final state. The final 2 groups were working on his elemental manipulation. Meanwhile, Naruto himself was practicing his kenjutsu. He had upped his weight seals yesterday. He was currently at 30 kilograms per limb, with a 40 kilogram weight seal tied around his waist. Naruto stood in front of a training dummy that he had sealed in a scroll. His legs were spread slightly apart as he held his hand on his sheathed blade. Naruto slowly closed his eyes, breathing in and out deeply. Before his eyes shot open and he leapt into the air. Comet! As he came down, he drew his blade. The glowing blade left sparkles in the air, outlining the downward right diagonal slash he had just executed. As Naruto landed on the ground, he flicked Shingetsu before sheathing the sword. As he did, the training dummy slowly separated into 2 pieces before falling apart. He smiled as he said, I think I did pretty good. What do you think, Shingetsu? You're definitely doing well. I was surprised you took to Ryu's kenjutsu style so well. Ryu is one of Shingetsu's former wielders and the creator of the Celestial Knight style. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly as he said, well, it just feels right to me, Databayo. Naruto placed his hand on the training dummy and channeled chakra into it. The seal that was engraved into it activated and the dummy repaired itself. There we go. What do you think, Shingetsu? Should I spar with some shadow clones? Aren't you supposed to meet with your girlfriend in 30 minutes? Naruto froze before he said, It's been 4 hours already? Damn, I guess I better pack up and head back. He resealed the training dummy and put away the scroll. He then turned towards the clones as he said, Hey, finish up your jobs and then dispel slowly, in teams of 2 or 3. The sound of agreement echoed as the original left the clearing. An hour later, Naruto and Hinata were sitting in a restaurant eating lunch, discussing their progress in training. They were both, of course, still working on the Rasengan, but they were also learning new things as well. Naruto was, of course, learning more about his kenjutsu style personally, all the while having a legion of shadow clones working on various chakra-based things. Hinata, on the other hand, had managed to get Tsunade to teach her medical ninjutsu a few days ago. With her kind and caring nature, not to mention the amount of chakra control she had, it was only natural for her to learn medical ninjutsu. She was also planning to learn some genjutsu when they returned home. Her goal was to be a well-rounded shinobi who could support Naruto, where Naruto would be using ninjutsu and fuinjutsu to control the field while fighting up close with his blade. She planned to learn genjutsu and medical ninjutsu to help support him. She also was thinking of learning to use a weapon. While her gentle step style was devastating, it would not work well against a heavily armored opponent. The whole basis for this was a long-term plan for the two to become combo partners. While many jonin tend to work alone on their missions, there were a few who would pair up with people who complemented their skill set. These partners would always be assigned missions together as they trained for their best techniques to be used in tandem. Good examples of this would be 2 of Konoha's sword masters, Gekko Hate and Yugao Yuzuki. Before Gekko Hate was poisoned, the two would rarely go on missions without the other. It was a tradition that started in Kumo, but had picked up some steam in Konoha. Kumo's most well-known combo partners were A and Killer B. Naruto swallowed his bite of fish as he said to Hinata. We're going to be heading back to the village in a few days, huh? I honestly expected Granny to fight returning to the village. Hinata smiled as she nodded, finishing the piece of pork she had been eating. She couldn't help but grin when she heard Naruto call Tsunade Granny. When he had first called her that, it had caused an argument until Naruto settled it by mentioning the fact that Tsunade saw his mother as her daughter, thus she was his granny. I know what you mean, Naruto-kun. Although I heard she plans to have you play in the poker tournament before we leave. Naruto chuckled awkwardly as he said. Yeah, apparently Pervy Sage told her about what happened at the casino database. According to him, I have the exact opposite kind of luck as her. So we should keep an eye out if I ever lose. Who knows, the moon might drop on us. How are you doing with the Rasengan, Naruto-kun? Naruto's head sank. I just can't seem to keep it stable. What about you, Hinata-chan? Hinata smiled as she said. Well, I'm getting better at it. All the chakra control exercises I did as a child have really been helping. They soon finished their meal and left the restaurant. The two decided to take a walk around the town. They enjoyed the sights and just enjoyed spending time together. They had come to enjoy just being around each other. Little did the two genin know. They were being watched by the two Sannin and Shizen. Tsunade had to knock Jiraiya around a few times already for trying to use her grandson as source material. The day Orochimaru specified. Jiraiya, Shizen, Naruto, and Hinata all were waiting in the trees, hidden by seals made by Jiraiya. The seals made them undetectable as long as they didn't move too much, or use chakra. They had been waiting there for the past 2 hours. The two genin had been told of the ambush plan 2 nights ago. Now the 4 shinobi were just waiting for the signal. Tsunade walked into the middle of the field where Orochimaru was waiting with Kabuto, the young man from the Chuunin finals. Orochimaru grinned as he said, Ah, Tsunade, I assume you have accepted my offer then? She nodded. Let's get it over with, Orochimaru. She held up her hand, which was glowing green, and started to reach for his arms. Only to be grabbed by the silver-haired medic, who frowned as he said, That wasn't the mystical palm jutsu. That was an assassination technique that was designed to look like the mystical palm. You were planning to kill Lord Orochimaru. Tsunade ripped her arm away before jumping back. I didn't realize you were such a skilled medic, Nin. Well, I guess Plan A is a bust. Seconds later, Jiraiya and Shizen appeared next to Tsunade, shortly followed by Naruto and Hinata. Jiraiya grinned as he said, Well, hey there, Orochi team, how have you been? Orochimaru looked at the 4 with a smirk as he said, Oh, I've been pretty well, Jiraiya Baka. I mean, I did kill our sensei recently. Jiraiya frowned as he said, Not before he took your arms from you. Now how does it feel to have lost the ability to use ninjutsu? Orochimaru snarled as he said, Not that it matters, I could easily defeat you even with my arms like this, Jiraiya Baka, because I suspected you might follow Tsunade here. Now Kabuto. The silver-haired medic Nin pulled something out of his pouch and launched it at Jiraiya. The toad Sannin caught it, revealing it to be a glass test tube full of powder. But before he could get rid of it, a kunai that had been launched under its shadow made itself known and hit the tube, breaking the tube and engulfing Jiraiya in the powder. The other 4 had managed to jump away just in time. Jiraiya managed to wave away the powder before falling to the ground, having trouble orienting himself. He looked up, his eyes unfocused as he said with a slur, What the hell was that? Kabuto smirked as he said, Just a special mixture I keep on hand. You see, we sensed your chakra in the village when you arrived. We knew you were hanging around Tsunade for the past few days. So when she came here, we were prepared. That poison I hit you with makes it so your body acts as if you're drunk, as well as knocking your chakra control completely out of whack. Jiraiya tried to stand up but stumbled before swearing. Tsunade frowned as she said, Shizen, try to purge some of that poison out of Jiraiya's body while I hold off Orochimaru. Naruto, Hinata, tried to hold back Kabuto. With those words she jumped into the air and brought her heel down where Orochimaru was standing, leaving Naruto and Hinata to deal with Kabuto. Naruto and Hinata versus Kabuto. Kabuto pushed up his glasses with a smirk as he said in a condescending tone, So we finally get to meet Naruto-kun. You know, I really wanted to meet you during the Chuunin Exams, but then you didn't join. It really broke my little heart. Naruto frowned as he clenched the crescent moon on his bracelet. With a small glimmer it transformed into Shingetsu, his sheath on his hip. Naruto slowly slipped into his Kenjutsu stance, while beside him Hinata slipped into her gentle step stance. Kabuto's smirk grew as he went through his hand signs and his hands began to glow blue. Oh, I feel so bad for you too, you have absolutely no chance against me. I'm easily in the same league as Kakashi Hatake. Naruto just couldn't help it, the man had set himself up perfectly. So you're 3 hours late for everything and read porn in public as well? Kabuto twitched slightly. The response had been completely unexpected. But he quickly recovered and responded with, sadly, Kakashi is all alone in that league. What I meant was I am close to him in strength. Before Naruto could reply, Kabuto charged forward, slashing his glowing hands at Naruto. Naruto dodged the strikes and swung his blade at Kabuto, who ducked, only to be forced to roll away when Naruto attempted to kick his face. Kabuto got up just in time to be forced to parry a strike from Hinata, but he was unable to counterattack as Naruto followed up with a kick aimed at his neck. It was less than a minute into the fight and Kabuto was already on the defensive. These two are nowhere near as skilled as me, that much is obvious. But they have amazing teamwork, it's obvious that the two are training to become combo partners. First things first, I need to take one of them out, then focus on the other. Hinata would be the easier choice. He flipped back, dodging a glowing blade before thrusting his hands forward at a rushing Hinata. She managed to dodge the main brunt of the attack, but her right arm was clipped. She flinched slightly but still jumped back. She looked at her arm, there was a rather long cut along her arm. It was obvious he had been going for the muscle, but only got skin. Kabuto didn't get a chance to capitalize on the cut as he was forced to duck another kick to his chest. Luckily, either Genin had noticed that he had missed Hinata on purpose, sending a signal for a contingency plan he had set in place to start. The two Genin tried to circle him, something Kabuto blocked by backing up slowly. He couldn't allow them to flank him. It was at that moment that Hinata let out a cry and fell to her knees. Where her ankles had been were two glowing hands. Before the two hands could retract through, Naruto had hit them with a kunai, and they disappeared with a puff. Kabuto swore. He doubted he would have the time to set up another shadow clone. But at least the clone had removed Hinata from the battle. Naruto kept his eye on Kabuto as he moved to stand over Hinata. Hinata-chan, are you okay? She groaned as she lay there. He severed my Achilles heel. I need either Shizen-san or Tsunade-sama to heal it. Sorry, Naruto-kun, I won't be able to help anymore with this fight. Naruto frowned as he observed the two. You two had rather good teamwork, let me guess you two are training to be combo partners? His smirk grew as he said. Then that means I have weakened you quite a bit, making it easier to kill you. Naruto shot him a grin. Oh really? You mean because it was so difficult before because you're not a combat shinobi? Kabuto managed to keep from flinching. Naruto was right, Kabuto specialized in healing and infiltration. He was nowhere near being a combat shinobi. But he was skilled enough to be able to defeat a genin. Naruto slipped into an Aido stance before he lunged forward. As he did, he pulled out Shingetsu, who was glowing a bright white color, and slashed at Kabuto. Starlight! Kabuto bent backwards to dodge the attack, but as Naruto went past him, he stopped and spun, bringing his blade down at Kabuto in a diagonal slash. Comet! Kabuto was forced to drop to the ground and roll to the side. While he wasn't fast enough to avoid getting cut, he took only a small cut along the side. But as he did, he made sure to lash out with his scalpels, hitting Naruto's legs, cutting deeply. Naruto clenched his teeth as he pulled Shingetsu back. Those two slashes were going to affect his movement speed. He had managed to cut into the muscle with one of them. As Kabuto got up, Naruto noticed that the cut he had given him was healing at a visible rate. Damn it, it's obvious he has a healing factor like me. Would impact damage last longer? No, probably would heal just as fast if not faster. I need something that would do a lot of damage. Damn it, I really wish I could use the Rasengan right now. Pretty sure he would have a hard time healing from that. It was at that moment that Kurama spoke up. His voice still sounded as if it had come from down a long hallway behind a door. You need more hands, use a clone to make the Rasengan while you hold it. Naruto's eyes went wide and he grinned. Good idea, Kurama, thanks for that. Now I just need to hold him in place. Before Naruto could put that idea in practice, Kabuto rushed forward. Naruto was forced to dodge one slash before knocking away the other with the back of the blade before slashing Kabuto across the chest. The medic nin jumped back and glared at the cut. Naruto now had an idea how to hold him in place. He sheathed Shingetsu, making the sentient blade speak up. Naruto, what are you doing? Naruto smiled as he drew a kunai. Trust me, Shingetsu, I got a plan. That's what worries me. Naruto charged at Kabuto, lashing out with kicks using his less injured leg as the pivot. Kabuto responded by swinging his chakra scalpels in an ornate pattern, forcing Naruto to dodge and parry. One of the swings got through and cut across Naruto's chest. The blonde just grit his teeth and used that moment to grab the enemy's free hand and hold it in place before stabbing through it and into his own hand with the kunai. Naruto groaned in pain before he said, "You lose, Kabuto." He held out his hand and the shadow close quickly began to create a blue sphere of chakra in his hand. With a grin, Naruto thrust the sphere into the struggling Kabuto's stomach. Rasengan! The sphere impacted Kabuto's stomach, grinding and digging deeper before it erupted and sent him flying, tearing the kunai out of Naruto's hand. Naruto fell to his knees groaning, holding his hand to his chest where a deep cut was found. Kabuto had managed to get one more cut in before he was blown away. After a couple minutes, a gentle hand touched his shoulder, startling him. He turned to see Shizen. "Come on, Naruto, let's get you over to Hinata so I can heal you both." She helped him over to Hinata, who was still lying on the ground, having managed to roll over onto her back, but didn't dare try to sit up. When they were halfway to Hinata, the field erupted into smoke and out of it appeared three massive creatures. A massive purple snake with black stripes. A rust-red toad with a pipe in its mouth with a blue vest draped over its body. The final animal was a blue and white slug. Naruto gritted his teeth as he said, "Shizen-san, go to Hinata. I'm interfering in this fight." As he said this, he pushed Shizen away and began to run through hand signs. Naruto and Hinata vs. Kabuto. Winner Naruto and Hinata. During Naruto and Hinata's battle with Kabuto, Tsunade's heel impacted the ground where Orochimaru had just been standing, leaving a crater. She leapt out of the crater at Orochimaru, who was forced to dodge each blow. The experiments he had performed on himself allowed him to dodge all the blows thrown at him with ease. He was the worst opponent for Tsunade, who mostly fought with taijutsu. As Orochimaru jumped back, Tsunade flicked out her left hand as if throwing something. To Orochimaru's surprise, a green chain came flying from her wrist. It quickly wrapped around Orochimaru. Tsunade gave a feral grin as she said, "Get over here!" With a tug, she pulled Orochimaru in and hit him hard in the face, sending him flying. After a few moments to recover, Orochimaru staggered up as he said, "I forgot about that, Tsunade." Tsunade had used that same tactic several times in the past. Although she wasn't extremely talented with her Uzumaki Kekkai Genkai, she still had the basics down. She was the one who had trained Kushina with her chains when they awakened, after all. Of course, how the two used their chains was completely different. Tsunade used her as a support technique to bring those who kept dodging her attacks close to strike, while Kushina had been skilled enough to unleash literal bullet hell with her chains. Not to mention the fact she could play seals with her chains. Thus those became her go-to alongside her kenjutsu. You know, they say the mind is the first thing to go. I see that's especially true for you, Orochimaru. With those words, she charged at him once again, beginning their game of cat and mouse. This went on for 2 minutes before Orochimaru was forced to duck under a couple kunai that came from the side. He looked through the corner of his eyes to see Jiraiya coming at him. Although he was not stumbling as much as before, it was clear he was still affected by the drug Kabuto had used. Orochimaru jumped into the air and kicked Tsunade away. As he landed, he flung his neck out like a snake, trying to bite Jiraiya. The toad Sannin went through a few hand signs before saying, "Ninja art, Needle Jizo." His hair grew longer and spiky before covering him. But because of his messed up chakra control, there were holes in his defense. Luckily for Jiraiya, he stumbled and fell over from the increased weight of the defensive hair, making Orochimaru overshoot and miss him. As Orochimaru retracted his head, he heard a loud crashing sound and turned to see Kabuto get sent flying by a Rasengan. "Impossible, that brat's just a talentless dead last." Jiraiya spoke up with a laugh. "Yet I was the dead last of our class, but you're too scared to fight me without handicapping me. What does that say, Orochi team?" Orochimaru snarled before launching the Kusanagi blade at Jiraiya, who was forced to dodge to the side to avoid the deadly blade. As Orochimaru retracted the blade, he cursed to himself. While Jiraiya was greatly weakened from the drug, he was still a threat. If it was just himself and Tsunade, he could win, but against both without use of his hands, he wouldn't win. It was then Kabuto appeared at his side. The silver-haired medic coughed blood before he said, "Orochimaru-sama, sorry I couldn't defeat the two genin." Orochimaru growled before he said. It doesn't matter right now, Kabuto-kun. Hurry, I need to summon Manda. Yes, Orochimaru-sama. Kabuto pulled up Orochimaru's sleeve and smeared blood on the seal before going through the hand signs. Tsunade and Jiraiya, seeing what the two were doing, responded in kind. Soon 3 voices shouted out, Summoning Jutsu! The field erupted into smoke and out of it appeared 3 massive creatures. The first was a purple snake with black stripes. The second was a rust-red toad with a pipe in its mouth with a blue vest draped over its body. The final animal was a blue and white slug. The snake spoke first. Orochimaru, how dare you summon me without my sacrifices? I demand 100 sacrifices. Kabuto spoke up. We are sorry, Manda, but it was an emergency. We will have you sacrifices ready next. Silence. The toad Gamabunta blew a smoke ring in Manda's face as he spoke. So all 3 of us are once again summoned together. Jiraiya spoke up. You mind helping me out, Bunta? I have been wanting a snakeskin wallet for a while. I'll help you out, Jiraiya. Katsuyu spoke up last. Lady Tsunade, am I right to assume we are facing Manda today? That's right. That bastard Orochimaru defiled my grandfather and grand-uncle's graves. Before Katsuyu could answer, another massive plume of smoke rose. Jiraiya, when he saw this, smiled. Before anyone could speak, through a loud roar ripped through the air, and the plume of smoke was blown away to reveal the beast that had been summoned. What appeared out of the smoke plume was a massive dragon. The dragon's scales were red, with what seemed to be white armor. Along its body were multiple colored orbs. It had mismatched eyes that both glowed. One glowed a deep green, while the other was blood red. Unlike the dragon summoned during the invasion, this one had no wings. Yes, its odd eyes, pendulum dragon. I wanted a dragon that didn't fly for this battle. As the last of the smoke cleared, the dragon spoke. Its deep voice was obviously that of a male. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, allow me to introduce myself. Today, for your entertainment only, I have prepared a spectacular performance that will leave you with your mouths hanging open. For the first time, Pendulum, the Odd Eyes Dragon, has entered the shinobi world. For my first great performance, I shall beat down my summoner's enemy, which is who exactly? Naruto smiles as he says. The big-ass purple snake. The dragon seemed to grin. I assume the toad and slug are allies then? Naruto's smile turned into a fox-like grin. Yep, the toad and slug were summoned by the 2 loyal Sannin of the village. The snake was summoned by the man who instigated the attack on my village close to a month ago. Well then, how am I supposed to ignore my adoring public? It was as if Pendulum's words were the signal. Manda lunged at Gamabunta, who was forced to block the attack with his tanto. As he was blocking the snake's attack, Katsuyu began to spray acid at the snake, who dodged out of the way. It was then that Pendulum entered the fight. He charged at Manda and struck out with his claws, which were covered in a dark red and black energy. Spiral Strike Claw! Manda managed to twist his body out of the way so the claws struck the ground. Upon impact, the energy released and blew a crater in the ground. Manda, taking advantage of that, lunged at Pendulum, but the dragon spun and smacked the snake's face with his tail, knocking the massive snake back. Sadly, the location Manda was knocked back to was where Katsuya had slithered to so she could get a clear shot at Manda. Upon impact, Manda quickly recovered and wrapped around Katsuyu, seeking to crush her. In response, Tsunade leapt off of Katsuyu. Once Tsunade was clear, Katsuyu broke into smaller pieces, making Manda lose a grip. Just in time to be met by Pendulum's tail once again. As he was knocked back, Jiraiya shouted to Gamabunta. Bunta, bring the oil! Gamabunta took in a deep breath before spraying a large amount of toad oil at Manda. As he did that, Jiraiya released a stream of flames from his mouth. Fire style, Toad Flame Bomb. The flames and oil turned into a massive wave of fire that impacted on Manda. After a few seconds, they stopped releasing flames. Jiraiya frowned as he saw the burning corpse. Damn it, Manda shed his skin, keep an eye out! As Katsuyu reformed, the other 2 summons began to look around. It was then Manda erupted from the ground behind Gamabunta, lunging at the toad. Gamabunta's tanto was knocked out of his hands and he was forced to catch Manda's maw with his hands. God damn it, someone come help me! Naruto leaned down and whispered to Pendulum, who let out a growl. Blonde lady, get on my tail! Not asking about what was going to happen, Tsunade jumped onto the dragon's tail, who then spun, launching her at the tanto. Seeing what was planned, she grabbed the tanto, using it to flip herself around and pulled it out of the ground before tossing it down through Manda's jaw, knocking him into the ground, pinning him. But before the snake could reverse summon himself home, Pendulum took a deep breath and released a stream of black and red energy shaped like a drill. Spiral Strike Burst! The stream of flames hit Manda's head and destroyed it, killing Manda. Pendulum slowly walked up to the snake. I don't sense the two humans who were riding on the snake. I guess they escaped. Well, I would say that was a great first performance. Pendulum lowered his head so that Naruto could get down, while Gamabunta let down Jiraiya. Katsuya sent a bow towards Tsunade before returning home, shortly followed by the Gamabunta. Pendulum, on the other hand, took another bow before disappearing. Tsunade began to heal Naruto's wounds. The same wounds that had been healing during the fight. She was done in a couple minutes. It was at that point that Jiraiya spoke up. Orochimaru and Kabuto managed to escape, damn it. Oh, shut up, Jiraiya, we'll get another chance eventually. Now get over here so I can finish purging that drug from your system. Jiraiya was forced to be quiet through the application of a fist to the skull. While Tsunade was healing him, Hinata came up and hugged Naruto. I'm happy you're okay, Naruto-kun. I was worried when you were forced to fight Kabuto alone. I honestly got lucky. If Kyuubi hadn't given me a hint on how to stabilize the Rasengan, I likely would have lost. Jiraiya and Hinata knew about Naruto's attempts to befriend Kurama, so there was no problem in telling her what happened. It was at this moment that Tsunade walked over with Shizen, while dragging an unconscious Jiraiya, who she had to knock out after he made a perverted comment. Let's get back to the hotel. Tomorrow is the poker tournament, then we need to go back to Konoha. The two genin sweat dropped hearing this. Naruto leaned over and whispered to Hinata. I thought the poker tournament was just an excuse to stick around for a week so we could ambush Orochimaru? Hinata responded with just as quiet a tone. That's what I thought as well, Naruto-kun, but it seems that's not it at all. Tsunade turned to Naruto as she said, As for you, Naruto, close your eyes for me. Naruto did as she said. A few seconds later he felt something fall around his neck, and then a pair of lips touch his forehead. He opened his eyes to see Tsunade smiling at him. Make sure to achieve your dreams, Naruto, and give me great-grandchildren to spoil, so I can make up for not being able to spoil you. It was at that moment that the necklace began to glow, and floated before lifting off of Naruto's neck and flew to land in Hinata's hand. Naruto looked at the glowing necklace in confusion. What just happened? Before anyone could answer, the gem glowed brighter before changing into a black monk staff. At one end were several metal rings, and hanging from one of the rings was the gem. It was at the moment that a gentle female voice sounded from the gem. Finally, a new wielder. It has been too long. I haven't sensed such a compatible person since Hashirama. Although I'm surprised the one who's able to wield me, being from Hamura's line. Shingetsu spoke up in surprise. Huh, Hinode, so you finally decided to wake up, huh? I couldn't help it, Shingetsu, she's got an aura as I haven't sensed since Hashirama. Shingetsu sighed as he said. Well, congratulations, Hinata, you have a new weapon. You're the proud owner of my sister, Hinode. Tsunade spoke up. What is going on? Why did my grandfather's necklace change into a staff? Shingetsu sighed. That's a long story, Tsunade. Omake, Naruto rakes in the cash. It was the finals of the high-stakes poker tournament. Only two people still had chips. One of them was a 25-year-old man named Kirito Tachibana. He was a well-known gambler, who had won close to 20 different poker tournaments. His pile currently had 10 chips in all. He grinned as he pushed his last 10 chips in. I'm all in. He threw his last 10 chips in. He was certain he could win this hand. He highly doubted the kid could beat a straight flush. Across from him was Naruto Uzumaki. The kid's pile was massive. His face could barely be seen behind the pile. His hand came up and threw in the 10 chips. Kirito grinned as he tossed his hand down. Beat that kid a straight flush. His hand had 5 spade cards, a 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Naruto nodded. That's a really good hand. Kirito grinned as he reached for the pot, but then Naruto continued speaking. Just not as good as a royal flush. He threw down his card to reveal a royal flush of hearts. Kirito saw the cards and began to twitch. As he did, the voices of the spectators began to register. That kid didn't lose a single hand the entire tournament. He won what, 30 million Ryo? The officials had to check if he was cheating 10 different times. They switched decks 5 times. The kid has the devil's luck. Kirito face planted as he began to sob, How did he lose so badly? The next comment from the spectator sent him over the edge. That's not the worst part of it. I don't think the kid really knew more than the basics when he started playing. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Kirito Tachibana began to cry. He had lost to a complete amateur. He was never going to live this down. Chapter 6: Cloudy, with a chance of exams? It had been 2 months since they had brought back Tsunade. A few days later she had cleaned up the hospital after taking over as the director. She had also officially taken Hinata as her student. It seemed that Hinata had a real talent for healing. She had also taken a few lessons from Kurenai-sensei in the art of genjutsu. Hinode had begun to train her in the art of bojutsu. Oddly enough, no one argued about that. It was the same with Naruto learning kenjutsu from Shingetsu. The weapons were oddly quite skilled teachers. Hinode had also shortened herself to suit Hinata's fighting style better. The sentient staff had shortened from 2 meters to a little longer than a meter. For reference, Hinode was originally 7 feet, so over 2 meters. She shrunk to 4 feet, so Hinode is now a little longer than a meter. Thanks to the training, Hinata had come out of her shell and no longer wore her coat. She now wore a light lavender sleeveless kimono-style blouse with vertical lines with a dark purple obi around her. She also wore dark blue shorts and black stockings. To finish the look was a pair of open-toed black high-heeled boots. She kept her hatae tied around her forehead to hide the fact the seal had been removed. Yeah, basically her outfit from Naruto the last except with her hatae around her forehead. I feel it's fitting for how confident she's become. She had to keep up the act that the seal was still on her forehead. Not only did it protect her from the Hyuga clan trying anything on her, but it also protected her from any shinobi that might be interested in the Byakugan. *Orochimaru. No one would target a banished Hyuga for their Byakugan. The moment said eyes were to be removed, they would be destroyed. Not only that, but on her death the eyes would be sealed away. Not to mention any children she had with a non-Hyuga clan member would be born without the Byakugan. All this was common knowledge. The Hyuga clan had leaked years ago. Not to mention what happened to that one Hyuga clan member who was banished and kidnapped by enemy shinobi. The enemy shinobi learned the hard way what happened to the Byakugan of a banished Hyuga. Of course this would all be true if she hadn't had the seal removed thanks to her father. Thus why she kept up the charade. Shortly after returning, Jiraiya was inaugurated as the Hokage. That day had actually been quite fun. It also resulted in a couple unexpected people being chased by women. 2 days before Jiraiya was set to be inaugurated, the Sannin learned something about Naruto's moveset. They learned that somehow Naruto had managed to create a whole new technique from the E-class jutsu. This new ninjutsu was easily an A-rank jutsu. The new transformation couldn't be seen through by the Byakugan. It was also impossible to dispel with a hit. Jiraiya would later find a use for said technique. This would lead to the Inauguration Day incident. Per Kakashi and Ebisu. Shortly after he was inaugurated, Jiraiya took a look at the former genin Yakumo Kurama's seal. He found it was faulty and close to breaking. He fixed it, making the seal better and allowing her to fulfill her dream. But she would need to recover a bit first. Might Guy began to teach her Aikido. Meanwhile, Tsunade has her put on a special diet to help rebuild her muscle mass. While Kurenai began to tutor her again after she got Yakumo's forgiveness. It was currently night, and Sasuke was waiting outside of his house. Over his back was a travel pack full of sealing scrolls. Inside them were supplies and jutsu scrolls. He was waiting for both Sakura so they could head to the rendezvous point to meet up with the ones who would take them to Orochimaru. Just like they planned. Flashback. A week ago, Sasuke and Sakura were training in their usual spot. It had gotten late and Sakura would soon be heading home. Little did the two know, they were being watched by 4 shinobi from another village. Their job, come in contact with Sasuke Uchiha and convince him to come with them. Their second objective was to recruit Sakura Haruno, who it had been confirmed that Sasuke was training with as a combo partner. Her disability wouldn't be a problem at all. Orochimaru-sama could easily fix it. It was at that moment that Sakan and Tayuya dropped into the clearing. Sakan was a man with pale skin and blue-gray hair. Behind his head was something covered in his hair. Tayuya was a woman with fair skin and red hair. They were both wearing similar outfits composed of beige-colored, sleeveless tunic with a purple rope-like belt. The 2 former genin turned ready to fight when they saw the pair. Sakan grinned as he stepped forward and said, "Hello you two, I'm Sakan, and she's Tayuya. You know, You're pretty good for a crippled former genin and a genin who's holding back so much. Why haven't you embraced Orochimaru-sama's gift yet, Sasuke? Sasuke grit. He had managed to feel the power of the curse mark during the invasion. But he hadn't been able to call on it since. The damn seal was restraining it. Sakon grinned as he leaned forward. You know, what you felt is only a taste of what that gift can give you. But that's not all. Orochimaru-sama can fix your friend's leg. Sakura growled as she said. Orochimaru was the one who broke it in the first place. Tayuya scoffed as she said. Oh, the only reason you're crippled like that, bitch, is because you thought being a shinobi on a diet was a good fucking idea. You had no fucking muscle mass. Your chakra would have sped up your healing and kept you from getting crippled if you had the energy. That was the stupidest idea out there. Only reason you're even able to recover as much as you did is because you stopped your bitching and started taking it seriously. Sakon held up his hand, making Tayuya quiet down. While my companion's words were vulgar, she does have a point. Not to mention, if you join him, Orochimaru would be more than willing to heal you. With his help, you two could achieve your dreams. The two of them froze. They couldn't deny that what Sakon said was enticing. But before they could give an answer, Sakon continued speaking. You don't have to decide now. You have a week to decide. We will be waiting in this training ground a week from now for your answer. With those words, Sakon and Tayuya left the clearing. Sasuke and Sakura never saw the other two. Sakura looked at Sasuke as the Uchiha began to grin. Sakura, we're going. It's just what we need to reach our goals. Sakura looked at Sasuke for a few moments before she nodded. She wouldn't leave him alone. She would walk beside him as they got revenge on those who wronged them, starting with Itachi, who slaughtered Sasuke's family, then Naruto, and then the rest. Anyone who got in their way would die. No matter who they are. Then after that was done, the two of them would rebuild the Uchiha clan together. Present day, Sakura soon arrived with her bag packed. Sasuke looked at her as he said, Are you ready to go, Sakura? The pink-haired girl nodded as she said, Yes, let's go. There's no more reason to stay here. They turned and left, unaware that they were being followed by a pair of shadows. They soon arrived at the training where they met the two sound shinobi. When they arrived, they found the two shinobi they had met before, along with two more. One was a dark-skinned man with 6 arms, the other was a large man with fair skin and an orange mohawk with 2 side tufts. They were both wearing similar outfits to the man and woman from before. Sakon grinned as he said, I assume you two have decided to take us up on our offer? Sasuke nodded. Yes, now how are we getting out of the village? Before they could continue speaking, the dark-skinned man frowned and seemed to tug on something in midair. When he did, 2 people wrapped in what looked like golden silk were dragged into the clearing. Sakon, these 2 were following them. They ran into my traps. Sakon looked at the 2. Good job, Kidamaru. Sakura gasped when she saw her parents, before her eyes narrowed and spoke in the ice-cold tone she had started to use after being attacked. Why did you 2 follow me? Mabuki spoke up. Sweetie, we've been worried. You've become so cold. When we saw you sneaking out tonight with a bag, we were worried. Kizashi had been analyzing the situation before he spoke up. These shinobi are from the Otogekure. You're defecting, aren't you, Sakura? Let it be said, even though he never progressed past Genin, Kizashi was still sharp as a kunai. Kidamura laughed as he said, Yep, those 2 were quite smart and have accepted Orochimaru-sama's generous offer. Mabuki focused on Sakura. Sakura, don't do this. Please, don't throw your life away because of the Uchiha. You have a GRK. She wasn't able to keep speaking as a kunai had found its way into her throat. The one who had thrown said kunai was Sakura. Sakura looked at her dying mother, her eyes as cold as ice. She chuckled as she said, Don't throw my life away, but Mom, you're the one who told me to chase my dreams. Well, Mommy, my dream is to give revenge on all those who have wronged me and Sasuke-kun. Kizashi was forced to watch as his wife died, choking on her own blood. He turned and glared at Sakura as he said, I assume I'm next, Sakura. He shook his head as he said, Sweetie, you don't have to do this. You know this will stay with you forever. I just hope that one day you GK. Kizashi was unable to finish talking as Sakura had thrown a kunai into his throat as well. Sakura grinned a slightly insane smile as she said to her dying father, Of course I have to do this, Daddy. It's what I was meant for. For those who haven't realized, yes, Sakura is a complete yandere, but it kinda matches up with the Sasuke in this story, who's completely unhinged and will happily kill everyone he sees as an obstacle. Sakura turned to the Sound 4 as she said, I'm ready to go, what about you Sasuke-kun? Sasuke nodded, turning to the Sound 4. Let's go already. Next time I see this village, it will be when I burn it to the ground. Kadamura chuckled as he said, I like these two Sakan, they're my kind of people. With those words he pulled back all his threads, he couldn't leave them behind without hinting they were here. Taiyuya spoke up. Fucking good for you Kadamaru, can we go now? The large man sighed. A lady really shouldn't curse so much Taiyuya. Oh fuck off Jirobo. Sakan glared at the two. Be quiet. He then turned to Sasuke and Sakura before pulling out a scroll. Orochimaru-san sent us supplies to begin your treatments. He unsealed a massive barrel, a bottle of pills, and a syringe. He pointed to the barrel. This is what we will be transporting you two in. It has 2 chambers, you both will be in one. He holds up the syringe. And this is the compound for the curse seal, we will inject Sakura with it, she will then be stored in her chamber. The curse seal will heal the damage done to her leg, as well as making her stronger. He held up the bottle of pills. These are mind-awakening pills. It will allow the curse seal to escape the seal and advance to stage 2. While this is happening, you will be in your own chamber Sasuke. Are there any questions? Taiyuya injected Sakura, while Sakan helped Sasuke into the barrel after he took the pill. Once that was done, they sealed both in the barrel. Jirobo then grabbed the barrel and the 4 left the clearing. As they did, they didn't notice that Kazashi had managed to pull out a scroll with a seal on it. A quick info scroll, used to send information that needed to be copied down quickly. Kazashi channeled the chakra into the seal, making the message he wanted appear. Once it did, the scroll rolled up. Sadly, Kazashi didn't have enough chakra to activate the signal seal. The pink-haired man died, with the scrolls still in his hand. The couple's bodies wouldn't be found for 24 hours. By then, it would be too late to send a tracking party after the two. Thus Jiraiya had no choice but to label Sasuke as a C-rank missing nin. 2 days later, Jiraiya was in the Hokage office with Tsunade, Danzo, Shikaku and Umbu Commander Dragon. Jiraiya sighed as he leaned back. 3 hours ago, a Chuunin found 2 dead bodies in Training Ground 82. They have been identified as Haruno Mabuki and her husband Haruno Kazashi. Kazashi was holding a message scroll, but he died before he could activate the signal seal. The message revealed why his wife and him died. They were killed by their daughter Sakura, when they tried to stop her and Sasuke from leaving with shinobi from Otogekure. Danzo frowned upon hearing this. It's too late to send a retrieval team after them. We have no other choice but to declare Uchiha a missing nin. Sadly Haruno is no longer a ninja, so we can't label her as well. But we should put a bounty on her head. Shikaku nodded. How long do you think it will take before Orochimaru steals Sasuke's body? Tsunade frowned as she said. I have a feeling he most likely changed bodies recently. I didn't heal the damage to his arms, so most likely he has changed bodies by now. A jutsu like that likely has a long cooldown before he could switch. He will also likely wait a few years before taking Sasuke's body as he will want him to at least be older. Right now if he were to switch into his body he would be stuck in the body in the beginning of puberty, as it will limit the amount of power he could use, even with enhancements. Danzo spoke up. My spy in Otogekure has told me that Orochimaru needs to wait 3 years, as he has recently changed his body. He can only use the jutsu every 3 years. Tsunade tapped her fingers on the armrest of her chair before she said, 3 years, 17 would be the youngest age Sasuke could be at for Orochimaru to get his full strength out of the body. Your spy is probably right, Danzo. Shikaku sighed as he leaned back. The question is, will Orochimaru keep the Sharingan after he moves on? Tsunade shook her head. I honestly don't know. Dasno sighed as he said. My spy told me that Orochimaru keeps the bloodlines that were in the bodies he steals, even when he moves onto a new body. Jiraiya turned in his chair so he was looking out the windows. They had been darkened so that no one could see into the room, but the people inside could see outside. Before that happens, I think we should recall Itachi, and reveal the truth behind the Uchiha massacre. Danzo looked at the back of the Hokage chair. Are you certain that is a good idea? He is currently our spy in the organization. If we recall him now, they may move sooner rather than later. Jiraiya spoke slowly, as if he was tasting each word. No, I don't plan to recall him now. I plan to call him back 2 months before they are ready to move. Itachi will need treatment as he is currently extremely ill. It will also cause chaos in the Akatsuki's ranks and possibly delay their movement a month or two. He spun around and looked at Tsunade. We will need to bring those out as well. Tsunade stared right back. Are you certain? I'm absolutely certain. Itachi will need them more than anything. Jiraiya thought to himself. I need to step up Naruto's training. He's also gotten far enough with his elemental training that I can help him get a third element. I'm thinking Earth would be best for him. Shikaku spoke up. What's the next topic you need to talk about? Jiraiya leaned forward as he said. We need to discuss the escort arrangements for the next Chuunin exams. They are in the allied village of Kumo. 2 months later, Jiraiya sat at his desk, looking at the group of jonin in front of him. As you all know, the Chuunin exams are in Kumo this time and will start in a week. Do we have any jonin who wants to sign their team up? Asuma took a puff of his cigarette. I nominate Team 10. Guy struck a nice guy pose. My team is ready for the Chuunin exams. I nominate Team 9. Kurinai had been thinking when she spoke up. Jiraiya-sama, Kiba is currently in the hospital for the next 2 weeks because of an accident on the past mission. Would it be possible to have Naruto substitute in for him? Jiraiya smiled. This actually works out pretty well. I was hoping a team would have a space open so Naruto could attend these exams. He had actually asked about it earlier this week. I'll talk to him later today. He looked at the rest of the jonin. Any more nominated teams? After a couple minutes there were 5 more nominations. After that there were no more nominations. Okay then, now for the escort. Of course the jonin sensei will be going, but also we will be sending Kakashi, Genma, and the Ino Shikacho team. Are there any questions? After a couple more minutes the group were dismissed. Jiraiya had an Umbu member go to collect Naruto, while he leaned back in the chair. Soon the blonde-haired genin entered the room. Hey pervy sage, what did you need? Jiraiya twitched, but he didn't bother trying to correct Naruto. He knew the kid would just ignore him. He did call the previous Hokage Gramps at times. Naruto, as you've probably heard, the Chuunin exams are coming up. This time they will be held in Kumo. Naruto nodded. Yeah, what about it pervy sage? Jiraiya tapped the desk as he said. There is an open spot on one of the teams that wants to join these exams. Their third member is in the hospital because of an accident on their last mission. They asked for a substitute. I was thinking of sending you. Naruto grinned. While he didn't participate in the last one because he wasn't sure if he was skilled enough, he was certain he was ready for this one. So which team am I being assigned to? Jiraiya looked at Naruto before speaking with a tone as if he was talking about the weather. Oh, just Team 8. Naruto froze, before his grin grew and nearly split his face in two. As the grin grew, his eyes became narrow as he said, Oh really? Well that's awesome to hear. Who am I going to be subbing in for? Jiraiya shivered. I feel bad for the other contestants in the exams. I know that expression too well. Last time I saw it, I ended up suffering quite a bit. Jiraiya managed to push down the bad feelings that were coming from the idea of sending Naruto to another village for the Chuunin exams. He could just hear the complaints. You'll be replacing Kiba. You are to meet Team 8 at Training Ground 8 for tomorrow. You'll be leaving in 2 days. So you should get used to working with Shino and Hinata while you have the chance. Well, I guess mostly Shino, since you and Hinata train together quite often. Naruto gives Jiraiya a thumbs up, looking scarily similar to Guy's youthful pose. That sounds like an awesome idea, Databeo. Just you wait, by the end of these exams, I'll be a Chuunin. I'll become a Chuunin on my first try. Jiraiya grinned. If you do it, I'll treat you to all-you-can-eat ramen. Naruto's grin changes from fox-like to positively evil. Prepared to go bankrupt then, pervy sage. Now is there anything else you need? I have something I have to do. Jiraiya just waved. Go ahead and go, I need to get back to working on the paperwork. Even with several shadow clones it still takes a while. See you later, pervy sage. With those words Naruto exited the office. His next stop, the Higurashi weapon shop. Higurashi weapon shop, Naruto walked into the store to see Tenten behind the counter reading a book. She looked up ready to greet the customer when she saw Naruto. Oh Naruto, are you here to pick up your order? Yep, they are done right? Yeah, just give me a few minutes to go get them. With those words Tenten went into the back. After a couple minutes she came back with a scroll and unrolled it before unsealing a few custom-made throwing knives. 5 dozen custom-made throwing knives. 4 dozen made of regular metal, and a dozen made of the chakra metal you provided. Just like you ordered, Naruto. 2 weeks ago, Naruto's clones had finally finished looking through the scrolls in the Uzumaki clan storage rooms. Naruto had been shocked to learn that there had been a scroll full of chakra metal ingots. Naruto had later figured out that most likely the ingots were used for his father's signature kunai. It was then that Naruto had come up with an idea. Since he planned to eventually learn how to use the Hiraishin, he would need markers. But he didn't want to use the same kunai as his father. Thus he had come up with his own design. The blades of the knives are black, with orange edges. The knives don't have a hilt, instead they have a flat part that is held between the user's fingers when tossed. In the very center of the blade was carved a small Uzumaki spiral. Look up blue bomber throwing knives, just imagine them as orange instead of blue, and replace the biohazard mark with an Uzumaki spiral. The Uzumaki spiral is about the size of a dime. This had caused him to have a stroke of inspiration. What if he made throwing knives with special seals carved into them? These special sealing blades would be color-coded to help organize them. The throwing knives Tenten had unsealed were the result. The first 4 dozen weren't made of chakra metal, as they were meant to be disposable. They would be marked with destructive seals that would destroy the knives when activated. Their edges were white with a white Uzumaki spiral. But Naruto planned to change the spiral color once he engraved the seals. The final dozen were made of chakra metal. Naruto had special plans for them. The edges of the blades were silver with a matching Uzumaki spiral. Tenten leaned forward as she said, "I'm really curious what these knives are for. Mind telling me, Naruto?" Naruto grinned as he held up one of the white-edged knives. "Now that would be telling, especially since these will have a use in the upcoming Chuunin Exams." "Oh, you'll be participating this time?" "Yep, sorry Tenten, but I got important things to do, Databayo." He sealed up the knives and paid for them. With that he left. It was time to get to work on his surprise. Later, the Uzumaki compound. Naruto entered the compound, hanging his hat on the hat rack near the door while his coat went on the nearby coat rack before removing his shoes. He then headed towards a certain room of the compound. This room used to be his father's workroom, where he had studied seals and managed to figure out how to change the Hiraishin to the powerful jutsu it had become. In the corner was a workbench that Naruto would be working at. As he sat down at the workbench, he set down the scroll containing the throwing knives. Once he did, he rearranged his scarf so it would cover his mouth and nose, to protect it in case he drew the seal wrong, then it could get a little explosive. He then grabbed a smaller scroll from a pouch on his utility belt and unsealed the contents. What appeared was a pair of green goggles, his old goggles he used to wear before he became a genin. They had been enhanced so they would help with his Fuinjutsu work. They were very difficult to break, and could act as a magnifying glass while he worked on a seal to help him notice minute problems. They would come in very handy with what he was about to do. The second item that was unsealed was a very small black metal box. He opened the box to reveal the item in it. It looked like a silver pen with multiple seals carved into it, but where the nib should be, was instead a long needle. At the other end was a small seal shaped like an Uzumaki spiral. This was a special item, only able to be made by the Uzumaki clan, a seal carving needle. This needle had been his mother's and after she died it became ownerless. Now it was tied to Naruto via his blood. This item was needed to be able to do seal carving that the Uzumaki clan was known for. Kushina has brought this needle with her from Uzushio, along with Shingetsu. This needle would allow Naruto to carve seals into metal. But because of the type of carving needle it was, the seals would be keyed to him directly. That's why Minato never had Kushina carve the seals of the Hiraishin for him, and instead used chakra paper wrapped around the kunai handle. Naruto placed his thumb on the seal and twitched slightly when he felt the needle jab into his thumb, before blood was drawn and stored in the silver part of the carving needle. Once enough blood was taken, the seals on the silver body glowed before the needle was pulled out of his thumb. The blood that was taken would be used in the sealing process, infusing the seals with blood to not only key them to his chakra signature, but to make certain the seal would work as required. Naruto took a couple minutes to let the wound on his thumb heal before he unsealed a white-edged disposable throwing knife. He put the tip of his needle against the white part of the flat of the blade. It was time to begin carving. This knife would be an explosive knife. 2 days later, Naruto stood with Team 8 at the gates to the village. Most of the other groups that were going to Kumo were waiting as well. What were they waiting for, you might ask? They were currently waiting for Kakashi to arrive. He was an hour late, although that shouldn't be surprising. But they were also missing Tsunade, who was coming along as the medic for the group. Naruto suddenly felt as if he should move. Doing as his instinct told him to, Naruto stepped to the left a few steps, much to the confusion of Hinata, who he had been talking to. It was at this moment that there was a feminine shout of rage and a silver and green blur shot past where he had been and impacted the ground in front of the gate. In the crater that had formed was Kakashi, who had his head buried in the dirt. Coming up behind the group was Tsunade, who had launched Sejonin. Naruto turned to Tsunade as he said, "Hey Granny, you nearly hit me with the flying pervert." Tsunade twitched as she said, "Well then you shouldn't stand in front of the gold brat." As they were talking, Kakashi had managed to dig himself out of the crater. He stood up and pulled out his book as he said, "Yo, sorry I got lost on the road of life. Tsunade was kind enough to guide me." Everyone's sweat dropped at that excuse. It was at this moment Jiraiya, who was here to see them off, cleared his throat. "Well, now that the last two members of the escort have arrived, I want to say a few things." Once they were all looking at him, he began to speak. "Now, as I'm sure you all know, the Chuunin exams you will be attending are in Kumo. I expect you to all be on your best behavior. Also, do not give the Raikage a reason to toss you out of Kumo. I'm looking at you, Naruto. If when I arrive there for the finals, and find out you have pranked the entire village, I will have you on catching Tora duty for the next 6 months." Naruto stiffened. He decided right then and there that the prank he had planned wouldn't go off until after they left. He would just need to leave a shadow clone to watch it. Jiraiya grinned as he said, "Now go and make the village proud." With those words, Jiraiya stepped back. As he stepped back, Asuma stepped forward. As he blew out a smoke ring, he said, "Okay, for all you who are wondering, it will take us 4 days to arrive. This will give us a day to get settled in. You have all been given scrolls containing your location in the formation. Are there any questions?" After a few minutes, no one had spoken up. "Okay then, let's move out." With that, the group left through the gate and jumped into the trees. 4 days later, the Konoha representatives arrived at the gates to Kumo. Once they signed in, they were requested to stay there for a bit while their guide was called. It was a few minutes later that a blonde woman in her mid-20s arrived. As she walked up to the group, her dark eyes wandered over them, before she smiled at them. "Welcome to Kumogakure, my name is Yujitoni. If you will please follow me, I'll lead you to the inn that is reserved for you all." As she led them towards the inn, a playful female voice spoke up in her mind. "Kitten, I can sense him. My eldest brother is in this group. His Jinchuruki is in this group. Which one is he, Matatabi?" "The one with spiky blonde hair and the whisker marks on his cheeks. The seal is pretty strong, so it's tough to sense, but I'm almost certain. Wasn't Shikaku's Jinchuruki in the last group I escorted? So currently there are 4 Jinchuruki in Kumo? Kitten, we got a problem." "What's wrong, Matatabi?" "Killer Bee is heading this way." "Wait, are you serious? Fucking hell." Suddenly they all heard a crash and a voice yelling at someone named Killer Bee coming from the next street over. "It seems like we have dodged a bullet." Yujito soon arrived at the hotel that was housing the Konoha representatives, the Heavenly Tower. Little did the group know, a Yaw Genin had seen Naruto. Said Iwa Genin headed back to his group to tell them how he saw a Genin from Konoha that looked like a young Minato. A day later, the temporary teammates stood outside the venue for the first exam. It was a 2-story building that was extremely wide. They needed to report to room 213. As they reached the second floor, they all noticed a very subtle thought appear in their minds that they should go back down the stairs. They pushed past it and soon arrived at the room. As they entered the room, Shino and Hinata were treated to something they remembered from Konoha: the killing intent of the other village genin. Naruto just brushed it off. His visits with Kurama had helped him get used to it. The ancient fox had helped him train his resistance against it, and even taught him how to project it. So Naruto decided to counter. He looked at the genin as he released his killing intent. Every single genin releasing killing intent was treated to the image of a massive figure wearing a black robe and a fox mask with 9 bladed bone tails waving behind it, hovering over them. As it opened the mouth of its mask, it released an eerie howl and drew a scythe from its back. It was at this moment that about 10 teams, mostly from minor villages, screamed in fear before they passed out and the image disappeared. The rest of the genin were left trembling from the killing intent. Those who are wondering, this is my version of the demon image Zabuza made during his final fight. Honestly, I always saw that image working similar to the gourmet cell demons from Toriko. Thus we got Naruto's killing intent image. It will appear again, trust me on that. Shortly after, the room was full of genin waiting for the proctor to arrive. Suddenly, the lights went out as a faint beat was heard somewhere in the room. From a balcony in the back of the room they were in, a single light shone down upon a certain blonde-haired Kumo shinobi with 7 swords sheathed on his back. He was bouncing to the beat that could be heard throughout the hall. The Kumo genin that were there, all sweat dropped when they saw who it was. It was at this moment that the shinobi began to rap to the beat. Know my name, know my fame, don't be lame. 8 tails, that's me, the rappin' killer bee. Battle after battle is what you'll face, if you don't wanna end a big disgrace. So hold on to your tails or else you'll fail. Lariat. A dark-skinned man with no shirt and a long white coat appeared behind the rapping shinobi and hit him with an outstretched crooked arm, smashing him into the ground. God damn it, B, I told you to stay away from the exams. The man who was ranting bent down and grabbed the man named B and started to squeeze his face. Karui, get the exam started while I punish my moron of a brother. With those words the man who could only be the Raikage dragged Killer B away by his face. All the while Killer B was screaming and begging for mercy. A voice sounded from near the door to the room. Man, this is so dull. I'm Karui, the proctor for the exam. The genin turned to see a dark-skinned man with shaggy white hair. He walked forward slowly until he was in the center of the room. You're all here to try and become Chuunin. One of the most important things for a Chuunin to know is the ability to gather accurate information. One such way to get said information is from a captured enemy. For this exam, you will be interrogating a prisoner. The prisoner knows the location that you are to report to if you hope to move on to the second exam. You are allowed to use whatever means necessary to obtain this information so long as you don't kill or maim them. If you do kill or maim them, you will be disqualified. Now, once you leave this room, you will meet up with the Chuunin who is holding the sign with your Jonin sensei's name. They will show you to your interrogation room. Team 8 waited 5 minutes for everyone to leave the room before following. When they left, they found that most of the genin had left with their Chuunin, while a few straggling teams were leaving at the moment. The only Chuunin still standing in place was the one holding the sign that said, Kurina Yul. Naruto led the 3 as they walked up to the Chuunin. The young man was light-skinned with blonde hair. So you're the team I need to escort, huh? My name is V. Follow me to the interrogation room. The 3 of them followed behind the blonde-haired Chuunin as he led them down into the basement of the building. They were led to a door. Beside the door was a clear window made of what Naruto assumed was one-way glass. V turned to the 3 of them as he said, Inside here is your convict. He has the location of the second exams. You have 3 hours to get the information from him. The group entered the room and looked at the convict in front of them. He was fair-skinned with greasy black hair and a hook nose. His eyes had a slightly crazed gleam in them. Oh my, so you're the ones who have been sent to interrogate me. Well, please, don't expect it to be easy. On a table near where he was handcuffed there sat a scroll. Shino grabbed it and opened it. Prisoner number 6978T. Prisoner's crimes are 3 counts rape and murder. Victims were found torn to pieces. Prisoner is scheduled to be executed in 2 weeks. T ignored them and was instead leering at Hinata. Naruto, when he noticed that, stepped in front of her, blocking his view of her as he reached into a pouch. Karui said we can't maim him, right? That means I can cause a bit of damage, correct? As he asks this, he slowly withdraws a throwing knife with a cobalt blue edge and a white uzumaki spiral. Shino nodded. Yes, as long as we don't cause permanent damage to his body, then we will not be disqualified. Naruto grinned as he spun his knife. Then this is perfect. With those words he stabbed the knife into T's leg. Before stepping back. T flinched as the knife entered his leg. But he chuckled as he was about to speak. But it was at that moment that the area around him began to blur and change. The 3 genin disappeared and he found himself in a black void. As he entered the void, the knife in his leg disappeared and the pain died. It was at that moment that he heard a deep chuckle and found his chair spun around. When it did, he found himself face to face with a demonic face. The face was framed by a mane of shaggy white hair. From under the white hair protruded 2 red horns. The figure attached to the face was gaunt, and wore a white kimono with a set of prayer beads around its neck. Its mouth was stretched in a horrible parody of a smile. Between its teeth was a sheathed tanto that made the grin even worse. From its body radiates an aura that screams of death and suffering. Honestly, I feel like the Uzumaki clan most likely knew what the Shinigami looked like. I mean, they developed the Reaper Death Seal, and even had a mask to allow them to free those trapped by said seal. They know what the god of death looks like. The demon removed the tanto as its grin stretched wider, splitting its face nearly in two. So you've finally arrived, I've been waiting for you, T. He felt as if his very being was in danger. Who are you? The being chuckled before it said. Oh, I am so glad you asked, I am the judge. It drew the tanto out. I am the jury. It finished drawing out the tanto as it leaned forward so its face was right in front of his as it said. And I'm your executioner. The being pointed his tanto at him as he said. For scum like you, I have a very special punishment. You will experience everything your victims went through, for all eternity. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, they all watched as the prisoner thrashed and screamed. Shino looked at Naruto, who was kneeling on the ground, his hands in a ram's seal as he focused chakra. What was that knife you stabbed him with? Naruto's voice was strained as he spoke. Both Shino and Hinata already knew about his heritage. Naruto had told Shino on the trip to the Chuunin Exams. He rather liked talking to Shino. Special Uzumaki clan seal. The Uzumaki clan made seals to make up for their weaknesses. Genjutsu and medical ninjutsu. He's suffering from an extremely powerful genjutsu tied to the seal in the knife. Genjutsu seals are different from normal seals in that if they aren't perfect, it takes 10 times more chakra and has to keep channeling but will still work. Because the seal isn't perfect, I need to keep channeling chakra to it. Seal was used as punishment for criminals who were sentenced to life sentences or execution. It forces them to experience their crimes from the victim's viewpoint. What was the seal you painted on his hand? It's a lie-detecting seal, pretty easy to make. It will flash if he lies. After a few more minutes, Naruto spoke up once again. Shino, remove the knife please. Shino walked forward and pulled the knife out of the convict's leg. Naruto took the knife back as he came out of the illusion and began to scream. Please, don't make me go through it again. I'll do anything at all. Naruto spoke up slowly. Then tell us the location of the second exam. It's at the Thunder Peak, where the heavens meet the earth. Naruto nodded as he cleaned the knife. Thank you for the information. He didn't need to confirm it, as the seal didn't flash, proving he was telling the truth. The team left the room and Shino stepped forward and said, Thunder Peaks, where the heavens meet the earth. He smiled as he pulled out a scroll. This has directions to Thunder Peak. You are to report there at 8 am tomorrow. Keep the scroll, you will need it. Naruto took the scroll and stored it in a pouch on his belt before Team 8 left. As they walked away, V looked into the room and shook his head. Whatever they fucking did to him, I hope I never have to experience it. Guess what, guys, you get 2 omakes this chapter. Omake, the Inauguration Day incident. Jiraiya was sitting in the Hokage office, a smile on his face as he relaxed. The inauguration had gone perfectly. He was now the 5th Hokage. He flinched when the memories from his shadow clones dispelled. Seriously, why would they aim there of all places? A couple minutes later was when the girlish screams began. Jiraiya looked out the window to see Kakashi and Ebisu being chased by a mob of women in only towels. Somehow said women had various weapons and were screaming for their deaths. They finally caught the 2 right at the base of the Hokage tower and began to viciously beat them. Jiraiya couldn't help but see the irony in this. His shadow clones had been under the improved henge, and made themselves look like Kakashi and Ebisu because those 2 were the closest to openly peeking on women. But for them to be caught right outside the Hokage tower, was Kami trying to tell him something? It was at that exact moment that he realized what it meant. There were no shortcuts in the way of the super pervert. He didn't need to use clones, there was a peeping tool in the office. Sadly, Jiraiya had said these things out loud, just as Tsunade had walked through the door. His girlish shrieks of pain echoed throughout the village that day. Omake, how Team 9 got the information, as Team 9 had been at it for 30 minutes, trying to convince their prisoner to talk, but they were failing horribly. Suddenly Tenten spoke up. I have an idea, give me a minute. With those words she left the room. A couple minutes later she came back, dragging Naruto by his coat. Tenten, why are you dragging me? Tenten pulled him to his feet. No time, Lee, you and Naruto should hug right now. As she said this she tossed a pair of earplugs over to Niji, who caught them and quickly put them in his ears. Lee jumped up as he shouted. Naruto and I are finally allowed to celebrate our youth together? Lee! Naruto! Lee! Naruto! They hugged, and that's when everything changed. This time it was different from before. Instead of a ship, they found themselves in what appeared to be an office. Tenten and Niji both closed their eyes in preparation for what was about to happen. Sadly, the criminal Sakura didn't know what was going on, but for some reason he was now free. It was at this moment that a voice shouted out, "Such a manly display!" Sakura turned and was terrified to see a massive man in a military uniform. The man was bald, with just a single blonde cow lick. He also had a blonde mustache, but the most terrifying thing was how huge he was. He made the rakeage look small. Suddenly the man's jacket and shirt dissolved as he struck a pose, complete with sparkles. "Allow me to show you the art of manly embrace that has been passed down in the Armstrong family for generations." The man, who Sakura assumed was named Armstrong, sprinted at him and grabbed him, pulling into a hug. Sakura did what any sane man, and many insane men, would do in this situation. He screamed and began to beg for mercy. 5 minutes later, Tenten and Niji walked out of the room dragging a comatose Naruto and Rock Lee. The two hadn't wanted to stop hugging, so they had been forced to knock them out. Tenten had a suspicion that Naruto did it because he enjoyed torturing those watching. While Team 9 had completed their first exams, they had points docked off for causing their proctor mental damage. Chapter 7: The Kumo Thunder Peaks. It was the morning of the second exam, and currently Team 8 was standing in a crowd that was in front of two small stands. Behind the two stands was a massive mountain. Around the mountain was a fence, similar to the fence around the Forest of Death in Konoha. In front of the crowd was Yujito, who stood with a smile on her face. Yujito pulled out a pocket watch and checked it before she clapped. "Okay, everyone is here." She pointed at the gate that was visible as she said, "So welcome to the Thunder Peal, where the heavens meet the earth. At the top of this is a large shrine. It's where Killer Bee, the weirdo who interrupted the first exam, lives. Don't worry, the rakeage is keeping him away from it. Now this second exam is pretty simple to understand. There are 35 teams. You all will be released into Thunder Peak. Each of you will present the direction scroll you were given by your previous proctor, and you have to sign some papers, basically saying Kumo isn't responsible for your death or maiming. After you've signed those papers, you will be given one of 3 tokens, either the sun, the star, or the moon token." As she said this, she held up the 3 tokens. Each of them was about the size of the ring on a kunai. The moon token was silver with a crescent moon on it. The sun was golden with a sun symbol on it. While the star token is bronze and has a star on it. You have a week to collect all 3 tokens and climb to the top of the mountain. You must also have your whole team alive to qualify. Are there any questions? After a couple minutes of no questions, she nodded and spoke again. "Now a couple things I'm legally obligated to tell you. First, as I'm sure you can see, about halfway up, the forest stops growing. Keep in mind that is the most dangerous part. Second, I highly doubt that more than 5 teams will pass. With your scroll, you will be given a signal seal tied to your team number. If you get into trouble with some of the creatures in there, and you absolutely can't get out of it, trigger the seal. Trust me, it can mean the difference between life and death." What she didn't mention was the fact that the seal released a bit of Killer Bee's chakra upon activation, thus not only allowing the user to be saved from the beasts of the mountain. They all obeyed Killer Bee as the top dog, but it would also allow the Chuunin sent to retrieve them to find them. Now, form an orderly line and head into one of the stands and get your token. Once you do, a Chuunin will escort you to your gate. Team 8 lined up in the right-hand group. Little did they realize, the IWA Genin teams, all 7 teams, were planning to target them. Iwa's hatred for the 4th Hokage made them decide to target Naruto because of his appearance. But Team 8 didn't realize this yet. 30 minutes later, Team 8 had gotten their token, which was a moon token. Said token was currently resting in one of the pouches on Naruto's utility belt. They now stood outside Gate 34, waiting to be let into Thunder Peak. It was at this moment that a voice sounded from the speaker nearby. "The exam will be starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, go, go." With those words, the gate opened and Team 8 ran into the training ground, the gate closing behind them. The 3 took to the trees and began to hop deeper into the forest. As they did, they began to discuss their plans. Shino, who was in the back, said, "I believe we should get deeper into the forest first, and then set up a base camp." "Why?" "Because it will allow us to have a staging point to gather the 2 other tokens." Naruto nodded as he said, "Yeah, if we set up a base camp, I can put defenses to protect us. Hinata-chan, keep an eye for any other genin. If you see any with the sun or star token, then tell UIS. Hinata nodded, and every few minutes she would turn on her Byakugan to check the area around them. Each Byakugan had a different range depending on the wielder. Hinata's Byakugan had the largest range for her age group. Her Byakugan could currently see in all directions for a distance of around 2 kilometers. It was sure to grow even larger by the time she was an adult. Thanks to this range and the speed she had become used to shifting through the information provided by her long-distance sight, she was able to see any threats and steer the team away from them. This went on for around 5 hours. As they moved, they would make small talk to keep themselves entertained. Suddenly Hinata spoke up. Naruto-kun, Shino, I found a team with a star token. From the Hittite, it seems they are from Kirigakure. The two stopped and both turned to Hinata. Naruto was the one who spoke up. Where are they, Hinata-chan? She pointed slightly left of the direction they were heading. They're northeast of our position by about 1.5 kilometers. They seem to be setting up camp at the moment. Naruto grinned as he said. Perfect, let's go. The three began to head towards the other group. Within a matter of minutes they had reached a tree that was far enough for them to hide in easily, but still gave a decent view of the camp that was being set up. The genin team had 2 boys and 1 female. They seemed to be about Naruto's age. One boy had fair skin and dark hair that reached his shoulders. Strapped to his back was a large zanbato. The other boy had pale bluish skin and sharpened teeth. His hair was bone white and cut extremely short. At his waist was a pair of kodachi. The girl had fair skin and blue hair that was done up in a ponytail. She was the only one without a weapon. At least the only one without a visible weapon. Naruto finished studying the ground before he turned to Shino and Hinata. Okay. Hinata-chan, where exactly is the token? Hinata reactivated her Byakugan. After a few moments she said. It's in the girl's kunai pouch. Naruto nodded as he said, Okay, I got a plan. Trust me on this and stay here. With those words he created a shadow clone and both of them began to move out. As they got closer to the campground, the shadow clone used the henge to change into a star token. Naruto grabbed the token as it fell and moved closer. He hid behind a tree just outside of the clearing and held up the token. With a puff of smoke, his henged shadow clone used the substitution jutsu to switch with the real star token. Naruto grinned as he could sense this wasn't his clone anymore. With that done, he snuck away. 10 minutes later he was back with the team and held up the token. I'll explain what I did after we get away. The two nodded and the group of them quickly left, hopping through the trees quickly to get away from the camp. After around 15 minutes they stopped and Naruto laughed as he said, That was pretty easy. Shino looked at Naruto as he said, What did you do, Naruto-san? Naruto flipped the token once before slipping it into his pouch with the moon token. My henge is different from yours, Shino. Because of all the chakra I have, and the horrible chakra control I had during the academy years, I would overcharge the henge to the point it became a solid disguise instead of an illusion. So I made a shadow clone, and had it henge into the star token, then substitute itself with the real token. Shino frowned. That's interesting to know. It was also a very clever plan. We should probably do that with the third token. If we can avoid fighting, then that's for the best. We do not know exactly what is on this mountain. Not to mention the proctor said it gets more dangerous the closer to the top we get. Naruto looked up at the sky that was visible through the canopy of the trees. Well, we will keep our eyes peeled. Let's go, guys. The team began heading north once again, towards the exit to the forest and beginning of the mountain. Little did Team 8 know, they wouldn't be getting another token peacefully. Before the end of this mission, all 3 of them will have been forced to kill, for the first time. 2.5 days later, halfway up Thunder Peaks, the sun was beginning to set. Currently Team 8 was setting up camp in a location surrounded by boulders. As Hinata and Shino set up the sleeping bags, fire pit, and would supply and other things needed for the camp, Naruto was setting up defenses. He had set up multiple trap seals outside the circle of boulders, to protect it. Currently he was setting up few ninjutsu defenses in the actual circle itself. He had his sealing brush out, and was painting multiple different interconnecting seals on the boulders and ground around said boulders. He had been at it for an hour, but he was finally done painting the seals. He cleaned his brush off with some water before drying it and sealing it away. Now came the final part. He placed his hand on a strange hand-shaped seal and began to channel his chakra into the seal. As his chakra spread, the seals began to glow blue. Soon the entire array was glowing a bright blue. After a few seconds the seals vanished into the stone and Naruto sat down, letting out a breath of relief. There we go, finally finished. As he sat there resting, he could help but chuckle when he remembered Jiraiya's reaction to how quickly he learned Fuinjutsu. Especially when he learned that he had reached the point of being able to do carved seals. It was actually funny hearing him rant about how unfair it was that a clan of hyperactive redheads were so talented in the hardest to learn shinobi art. A shinobi art that required them to sit still no less. Hinata walked over to the resting blonde as she asked, "Are you okay, Naruto-kun?" Naruto grinned as he said, "Yeah, just tired. Drawing complicated seals like those are tiring. To think that when I reach seal master level, I'll be able to draw seals that make these look like a kid's painting. Well then, how about you come over to the campfire? We can make some dinner and discuss the watch schedule." Naruto nodded as he stood back up and followed her, but as he did he twitched and stopped. Hinata turned to see Naruto looking around, confused. "What's wrong, Naruto-kun?" "I could have sworn I heard someone say something. But I couldn't hear it clearly." He shook his head as he said, "Did I just imagine it?" Naruto did not imagine it. What he was experiencing was the beginning stage of the ability that came from training in the black leg style. The power of willpower, haki. Usually someone who trains in the black leg style would need several years of training to even think of unlocking it. But Naruto, who has not only abused the shadow clones to the point of it being ridiculous as well training with the man who does not know the concept of rest, my guy. This has pushed his awakening forward exponentially. But his haki needed one more thing to awaken fully. Something that would come soon. 3 kilometers to the west. In a location 3 kilometers away were all 7 of the IWA teams. 21 genin ready to get what they considered justice. Near a genin with white hair, the ground shook slightly before a mole popped out. It was the young man's personal summon. The mole spoke up in a deep scruffy voice. "Tenji, I found the team you wanted me to find. They are 3 kilometers east here in a circle formed by boulders. It's been heavily fortified with Fuinjutsu, so I can't get too close." The one with white hair, who was apparently named Tenji, nodded. "Were you at least able to tell what kind of Fuinjutsu might have been used?" The mole tapped the ground with one claw. "I couldn't tell you the exact types, but I can tell you that there definitely are lots of traps. The blonde used a lot of shadow clones to make them, so I can't tell you where they all are. Also, the area around the campsite is reinforced, from the amount of chakra I sensed. You will not be able to manipulate the earth in that circle. I honestly would recommend not attacking them in the circle because of those seals." The mole shivered before he said, "Do you have to attack that group?" The blonde gave me a really bad feeling. He wasn't even looking at me. But still it felt like a massive predator was looking at me like I was lunch. "I'll keep that in mind, Hokori. Now why don't you go back home?" The mole named Hokori sighed before he said, "Just please be careful, Tenji." With those words Hokori disappeared in a plume of smoke. Tenji turned to the rest as he said, "You all heard what Hokori said, correct?" The group nodded and acknowledged the information. "Then we need to come up with a plan of attack." One of them, a male genin with a broken nose, scoffed as he said, "We outnumber them 7-1. What do we need to plan? We just smoke them out of the cave then overwhelm them with numbers." The other genin quickly agreed. Warning, infodump, it wasn't odd that the group were thinking this way. Each shinobi village had its own unique way of fighting that they trained in. Iwagakure was known for the fact it had the largest amount of shinobi out of the 5 great ninja villages. Their tactics mostly relied on overwhelming the enemy army with many troops, and slowly taking ground. Any ground the IWA shinobi took became reinforced by earth ninjutsu. This made it difficult for other villages to reclaim land that was taken by Iwagakure. Kirigakure was the village best known for their stealth tactics. This village was known for the fact it had the best assassins. The 7 swordsmen of the mist are feared for their stealth skills. Before the bloodline purge, it had also been the village with the most Kekkei Genkai. Kumogakure was the only village that produced better swordsmen than Kirigakure. It was also the village with the highest number of shinobi swordsmen. They are also known for the fact that each shinobi trains and fights with another. This is known as the combo partner. This tradition has begun to appear in Konoha as well after the alliance was formed. While Tsunade might have the least shinobi, it makes up for it by being the village best known for its poisons. Not only does the village puppet corps use these poisons, but quite a few of the other shinobi do as well. Wind specialists using their wind to spread airborne poison. Even some from the clan known for its magnetic release Kekkei Genkai occasionally soak their weapons in poisons. The thing Konoha is most well known for is its teamwork. It is also known for the fact it produces many powerful shinobi. Currently including the missing nin from Konoha, it has the most S-class nin currently alive. Info dump over, thank you for putting up with it, Tenji sighed as he said. Then how exactly do we smoke them out? Genin with the broken nose grinned as he said. Really simple, we use explosive tags. Toss a few in there, and see how long they stay in there with explosives being chucked in there. Tenji nodded. That could work, let's go with that. Okay everyone, we attack at dawn. We will soon have our revenge on that bastard Namikaze. Dawn, at the cave where Team 8 are staying, Naruto was sitting against one of the boulders. His scarf was pulled up to cover the lower part of his face, and his hat brim pulled down to shadow his eyes. His eyes, which were hidden by the brim's shadow, were watching the area around him. Nearby were Hinata and Shino, who were sleeping. Naruto was on the last hour of his watch. Once the sun finished rising, he would wake the others, and then after breakfast they would move out. He twitched when he heard the sound that he had been hearing all night. Like that of a voice whispering in his mind. He knew for a fact it wasn't Kurama. He had actually visited Kurama during the middle of his watch to ask him about it. The ancient fox didn't know what it was either. It was at that moment that Naruto's head shot up and he frowned. His sensor seals had been tripped. He stood up and gripped Shingetsu, making the sheathed blade appear at his side. He then went and woke up Hinata and Shino. As Shino stood up, the explosions began. The two turned to look at Naruto, who just chuckled sheepishly. He had set up a lot of traps. Not all of them were explosive tags. He just hoped no one triggered those two special traps. He twitched when he felt a special seal go off. Never mind, they're screwed. Seconds later the second seal was tripped and Naruto face-bombed. He felt so bad for using those seals now. But he couldn't resist. His mom's notes said that they were great for pranks for those you despised. Soon the explosions were done going off. Naruto turned to the other two and they all nodded and moved closer to the boulders and looked out. They saw a lot of explosion marks and scattered body parts. Hinata and Shino both ended up throwing up from the sight. Naruto barely managed to keep it down. It was at that moment that a large rock came flying towards Naruto. Naruto managed to duck under the strike, and that when they realized there were still enemies attacking. 7 in all, coming from 3 different directions. Team 8 looked at each other and nodded just as the 7 entered the circle. As the IWA genin entered the circle, the seals began to glow again and the ground glowed again, sealing it away from being used as a weapon, thus sealing away the IWA genin's strongest weapon. The 3 Konoha genin charged at the enemy. Shino and Hinata each took on 2, while Naruto attacked the last 3. Shino's battle, Shino stood before the 2 genin he would be facing. 2 young men. Both with black hair and identical faces, most likely twins. The twins scoffed upon seeing Shino. One of them spoke up as he said, "What's with the big coat and glasses, freak? Afraid someone will see how ugly you are." Shino ignored what they said and slowly raised his arms. As he did, a swarm of insects flew from his large sleeves. "Shall we begin?" The other twin frowned as he said, "So you're from the Aburame clan, huh? Let's see how you like getting squashed, bug boy." The twins ran through hand seals in turn before slamming their hands on the ground. Earth style, earthquake slam! Sadly, the twins weren't the sharpest knives in the drawer. In fact, they were not knives, instead they were spoons. They didn't pay attention when Hokori said that manipulating the earth wouldn't work in the circle. So imagine their surprise when the technique didn't work. Shino, realizing this, rushed forward and released a wave of insects at one of them. "Secret technique, insect sphere!" One of the twins managed to just get away. But the other wasn't quite as quick and was engulfed in a sphere of insects that began to feed on his chakra. The twin that got away, whose name was returned to his brother, shouted out, "Bo, damn it, how dare you do that to my brother!" The twin who wasn't being mauled by insects raised his arm as his skin began to glow brown. With that he charged at Shino and swung at him. Shino ducked and swung his leg, sweeping the young man's legs from under him. As the twin fell, Shino punched him lightly, getting a female beetle on him. Before engulfing the second twin in a swarm as well. He moved back and looked at the 2 thrashing twins and frowned behind his collar. "Did I get the easy enemies?" It was at that moment that Naruto screamed Hinata's name and a burst of bloodlust with a shockwave erupted from behind the Aburame. He turned and was shocked at what he saw. Shino vs. twins, Bo and Wa, winner is Shino, battle, Hinata vs. 2 genin. Hinata had Hinode drawn and was in her starting stance, one hand holding Hinode around the middle as she held it slightly behind her. Her other hand was held out, her palm ready to strike. She frowned as the two male genin leered at her. She tried to fight off the shivers coming from how they were looking at her, but it was difficult. I am really starting to regret not wearing the coat anymore. Hinata knew she was more developed than most 14 years old. I might just have to castrate them for leering at me like that. Hinata froze for a moment. I have spent way too much time with Anko-sensei. The two young men were as different as night and day. One was short and fat with brown hair. The other was tall and extremely thin with gray hair. The short one said with a deep voice, Jin, you don't mind if we take her alive, do you? The gray-haired young man grinned as he said, I think you and me are thinking the same thing, Tendo. Hinata spun Hinode as she looked at the two with unease. Not because she doubted that she could win. More because of the fact they were just looking at her like she was some kind of sex toy. This was actually the reason she wore the large coat for so long. She developed younger than all the other girls in her class, so she wore the coat to hide it. She was worried if boys started to ask her out, Naruto wouldn't be interested in her, thinking that she was that kind of girl. As the two young men leered at her, she became tired of it and rushed forward, spinning Hinode as she did. She spun around and struck the one named Jin in the arm. The surprised genin barely managed to dodge backwards. Tendo, who seemed to have been ready unlike his tall counterpart, lunged at her with a kunai. Hinata ducked under the strike and thrust her free hand up, hitting a chakra point in his wrist as well as knocking the kunai out of his hand in the process. Tendo jumped back hissing as he held his right wrist at his waist. His hand was numb to the point of being unusable. Luckily for him, Hinata didn't get the chance to push her advantage, as Jin had managed to get over his shock and ran through a series of hand signs. Earth-style, stone pistol jutsu. He began to spit several pebbles at high speed. As they got close to Hinata, they turned into boulders the size of her torso. She was forced to jump out of the way. As she landed, a kunai came flying at her back. She spun quickly, knocking the kunai out of the air with Hinode. When she did, she raced forward and swung her staff that was held in a two-handed grip at the head of Tendo, who was forced to duck, only for Hinata to release her right hand from the staff and strike the dodging Tendo in the chest with her palm, sending fire nature chakra rushing into his chakra network. She dodged to the side to avoid another barrage of boulders from Jin. As she did, she noticed that Tendo was holding his chest and coughing up blood. She rushed at Jin. She was glad to know that the fire nature chakra was working. Jin was forced to backpedal to dodge the barrage of staff strikes and palm thrusts that came at him. But even though he managed to dodge most, two Juho strikes managed to slip through. Using a technique she developed through the use of the first step of the Rasengan training, she managed to curve the chakra from those two strikes, to knock out 3 chakra points each. His right arm was now completely useless, and it was infected with burning fire chakra that was burning his chakra network. She spun Hinode and struck at his head. Jin, who was distracted by the pain, was slow to react and took a hard hit to the head. He was unconscious before he hit the ground. Hinata spun and ducked under a kunai launched by Tendo before rushing forward to strike him in the stomach with Hinode. The air left the short boy before Hinata sent a Juho strike at his back, looking to knock out his main chakra point with a curving strike. Sadly, Tendo managed to recover quicker, and Hinata hit the top of his head instead. Upon impact, she reflexively released chakra into him, destroying his brain. It was only as the short boy fell did she register what she just did. She froze, unable to understand what she had done. It was at this moment that one of the genin facing Naruto had dashed away from him. He charged at Hinata from behind, his tanto drawn. She was too slow to react and turned just to get slashed diagonally across her torso. She lost her balance and fell back, hitting her head on the ground, blacking out. As darkness consumed her vision, she heard Naruto scream her name, then a shockwave, a wordless roar of rage, and the strongest bloodlust she had ever felt was released. Naruto versus 3 genin. Naruto stood ready to fight, facing the 3 genin. They had been in this position for a couple minutes. He had expected them to attack him by now. There was a white-haired young man, Tenji, a young woman with long black hair. There was also a young man with short black hair, holding a tanto. He was the only one with a visible weapon. The black-haired man grinned as he said, "Finally, we can get our revenge on the Namake's bastard. He might be dead, but we can take out his brat. Are you two ready, Tenji Aika?" The girl grinned as she said, "You are correct, Ryuga. Now let's kill this blonde brat." Naruto looked at them with a deadpan expression on with his hat pushed back a little as he said, "You all seriously attacked me, because you suspect I might be the fourth Hokage's son? Are you people mentally ill?" He didn't bother denying the fact he was the fourth son. There was no point, it was obvious that they were certain. Not to mention it was the truth. The boy named Ryuga scoffed as he said, "Yeah right, I don't know how you tree huggers managed to hide you brat. But it's obvious you're that bastard's child. But don't worry, you won't be going to the afterlife alone." Before Naruto could react, Ryuga raced towards Hinata. Naruto tried to chase after him, but he was forced to jump back to dodge attacks from Tenji and Ika. Naruto was forced to watch as Hinata was slow to reach and suffered a slash across her torso. As she fell, he felt his head begin to throb and he heard a distorted and dark voice say, "They dared to hurt Hinata. We must make them pay." The last thing he clearly felt was all-encompassing anger, and then everything became coated in red. At that point it was difficult for him to think straight. The only thought going through his head was, "Kill those who hurt Hinata! Make them suffer for their crime!" Tenji backed off, his face filled with fear at what had just happened. The bloodlust that filled the air was so powerful that he had trouble breathing. He silently cursed Ryuga for what he had done. Ryuga had attacked the Hyuga girl while she was frozen from killing Tendo. Now they were facing a monster. Naruto had become covered in a red film of bubbling chakra. As the chakra finished coating him, it took the shape of a fox, and a single tail of chakra appeared behind him. The genin knew what that chakra was. It was the chakra of a Bijou. They had just angered a Jinchuruki. But not just any Jinchuruki, the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Yoko. Sadly for the IWA genin, it just got worse for them. As this anger triggered two things to awaken. The first was his haki, allowing Naruto to sense the world around him and the intent of others. Not to mention the ability to increase the strength of his attacks. But Naruto's haki awakening wasn't the worst part. Neither was the red bubbling chakra. No, the worst part was what appeared above Naruto. It was the figure that appeared in the first exam. But somehow it had become more detailed. The figure was wearing a black robe that seemed to absorb the light and hid most of its figure. It wore a white and red extremely detailed kitsune mask that stretched out in the front like a snout, and had a mouth that opened slowly, releasing a stream of black-colored smoke. Behind it waved 9 bladed bone tails. As they waved, they cut through the air. Unlike before when it held a scythe, it now held in its right hand a blood-red katana with a white handle. The kitsune mask opened and began to laugh insanely. Its laughter was distorted, as if two people were laughing at once. Think Hollow Zangetsu's laugh during his fight against Byakuya. Naruto began to sway slightly from side to side. As he did, his arms moved slightly, but the movement was weird. As if he was a puppet being guided by strings. The young blonde's head had been down ever since the shockwave had burst out. It was at this point that his head slowly rose. Soon, they could see his eyes under the brim of his hat. The right one was blood red with a slit pupil. But the left eye was a shade of purple that matched an amethyst, but the purple was odd. It was a vertical emerald green bar that bled into the purple iris. It was at that moment that a voice broke the silence. It was Shingetsu who spoke. "Naruto, are you still there?" Naruto didn't answer. Instead, a wide, demented grin split the teenager's face. His hand flexed slightly, and Shingetsu fell to the ground before Naruto vanished in a blur of motion. When he reappeared, his arm was through the girl Ika's chest. With an insane laugh, he pulled his arm back, holding the young woman's still beating heart, and crushed it in his hand. Ika fell to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. Ryuga spoke up, his voice shaking with fear as he backed away from where Hinata lay unconscious. "You monster!" Naruto tilted his head as he said in a distorted voice. The same voice that had come from the being behind him before. "Monster am I? This coming from the boy who wanted to kill someone because he might be related to someone else." Tenji managed to recover enough to spit out a barrage of pebbles at Naruto's back. As they flew, they grew to the size of Naruto Tozo. But without even looking at him, Naruto perfectly dodged around each boulder. After the barrage ended, Naruto turned and grinned at Tenji. In a blur of motion, Naruto once again vanished, this time reappearing in front of Tenji. Naruto reached out with a hand that became black as night, and grabbed Tenji's right arm and with a snap, broke it in 3 different places. As Tenji screamed in pain, Naruto grabbed the left arm and broke it the same way. He then kicked out, shattering Tenji's kneecap. As the young man fell to the ground screaming, Naruto reached out and grabbed his head, with both hands, both of them black, and crushed his skull with ease. At this point, the only one still standing is Ryuga, the one who dared to attack Hinata. Naruto turned his odd eyes towards the man who caused all of this. The demented grin reappeared as he slowly walked towards Ryuga. Now all that is left is you. The one who dared to touch Hinata. Ryuga was unable to move, the killing intent was holding him in place. Naruto grabbed him by the throat, and his grip slowly became tighter. Ryuga struggled, trying to escape. Naruto grinned, and with a loud snap, Ryuga's existence was snuffed out. Naruto tossed Ryuga to the ground, his neck now at an odd angle. Naruto turned his eyes towards the three unconscious IWA genin and began to step forward when a soft voice spoke up. "Naruto-kun, don't do it!" Naruto froze, the voice cutting through the red haze and the grip of darkness that consumed him. He shook his head as the Bijuu chakra and the image behind him began to fade and disappeared. As it did, Naruto crumbled to the ground unconscious. An unknown location, Naruto awoke to find himself in a dark place. He couldn't see anything further than 3 meters away. It was at this point that the distorted voice he had heard before everything went black spoke up. "You know, I've wanted to talk to you for a while, Naruto." Naruto turned to see a young man, who was wearing the same clothes as him, just with inverted colors and missing the scarf, but he couldn't see his face, as it was covered by a white and red kitsune mask that seemed to have taken the place of the scarf. The masked young man leaned forward and the kitsune mask seemed to grin. "It's so nice to see my light half." Naruto looked at the reverse-colored young man and asked the question that he had been curious about for a while. "Who exactly are you?" The young man pushes up his mask to reveal his own face. The difference was that the whites of his eyes were black, and his pupils were blood red. "I'm part of you, Naruto, you can call me Yami. I'm formed from your negative emotions and your darker instincts. You may call me Yami." Yami bowed to him cheekily. Naruto frowned and asked the two things that were on his mind. "How exactly do you exist, and why are you appearing before me, now of all times?" Yami grinned before putting his mask back in place. "It's because you're a Jinchuruki. A side effect of housing a bijou is the fact the vessel's darkness and light will be separated. This is meant as a trial for later on. As for why I appeared, well, that bastard hurt Hinata. This caused you to awaken quite a bit of power which overwhelmed you. I took control of the body to deal with them." Naruto dropped into a defensive position. "You're not planning to try and take control of my body from me, are you?" Yami raised his hands in surrender. Don't worry, I only took control so they couldn't escape. If it was before the Chuunin exams, I might have fought you for control. But now, I actually like your new attitude. You've started to accept your negative emotions. You've stopped burying them. You've started to accept that it is normal to feel hate, anger, sadness. That means you've begun to accept me." Naruto slid out of his fighting stance. "So what exactly does that mean? Are we going to fuse together?" Yami shook his head before sitting down. "Sadly not yet. You need to be at a certain location to be able to do that for some reason. No reason I am here is to talk to you about the two powers you awakened." "What powers did I awaken?" That's when a bright light blinded them both and they found themselves in the garden that represented Naruto's Mindscape. It was at that point that Kurama's voice sounded. "The two new powers you awakened were Haki, and your Kekkai Genkai." Naruto was surprised. He knew he would eventually awaken Haki. But the second part shocked him. "I have a Kekkai Genkai?" Kurama rested his head on his chin as he said. "The Uzumaki clan had multiple unique Kekkai Genkai. Your mother was able to command golden chains that sealed away chakra. They were even able to restrain me. Then what's my Kekkai Genkai?" Kurama's gaze became far away, as if he was looking past them. "Your Kekkai Genkai is the strongest one the Uzumaki clan has. A Kekkai Genkai that only 2 others have awakened. It is called Avatar." "What does it do?" Kurama shook his head. "I do not know. Each avatar is different. The first user, Shanks Uzumaki's avatar, was able to knock out those weaker than him, and put a pressure on those as strong or stronger than him. Axel Uzumaki's avatar allowed him complete immunity and control over all forms of fire. The only common factor between all avatars that have appeared so far is the fact they are somehow tied to nature chakra. I am not quite aware of what your ability is, sadly." Yami leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand as he said. "What the great fluffy demon didn't mention is, even though you have awakened it, your body isn't quite strong enough to use it. Yami made air quotes when he said the word demon. Kurama growled. I am not Fluffy. Yeah, keep telling yourself that, Fluffy. Yami turned back to Naruto as he said. I could sense that the avatar was incomplete. I'm almost certain that it's not supposed to just hover behind you. It feels like it's supposed to cover you like a cloak. I'm almost certain it was because you aren't strong enough to use it. Naruto raised his hand and asked something he had been curious about for a while. Yami, why are you wearing a kitsune mask? The kitsune mask seemed to grin mockingly at Naruto as Yami said. Because I like it. What, you jealous? Naruto just stared at Yami with a blank face. Yami launched for a bit before he said. It's your Mindscape, Naruto, you control it. Since I'm part of you, I have limited control. I didn't want to wear the scarf, so I went with a mask. Yami tilted his head as he said. I like the hat though, you really know how to pick a good hat. I feel like a real dandy man. So we have no clue what my avatar actually does? Kurama shook his head as he rumbled. No, and I suggest not experimenting with it for at least 2 years. When I say you're too weak, I mean your body is not developed enough to handle it. It shouldn't have awakened yet, but your anger awakened it. Give it about 2 years for your body to develop some more, and you should be able to use it. Also, you using some of my chakra weakened the seal, so you should be able to hear me clearer. Naruto noticed everything had started to become blurry. Yami laughed with his weird echoey voice as he said. Looks like you're waking up, Naruto. I look forward to our next chat. I especially look forward to the day that we are one once again, Naruto. Kurama shot Naruto a fanged grin. Good luck on the rest of the exam, Naruto. With those words, everything went dark for Naruto. 30 minutes after he blacked out. When Naruto's consciousness began to come back. Even with his eyes closed, he could see things around him. He could see that he was resting in the lap of a lavender-colored figure that shone with a strong yet gentle light. While across from him was a blue figure with multiple black dots rushing throughout. Could this be his Haki? That means that the lavender-colored figure is Hinata. While the blue one is Shino. It was Shino's voice that he heard first. How is he doing, Hinata? I think he's coming around. Naruto-kun, are you awake? Naruto opened his eyes then closed it. His eyes burned from the light. Apparently his head was on Hinata's lap. Yeah, I'm awake. How long have I been unconscious? What he had been able to see was the fact Hinata was no longer covered in blood, and apparently had changed her blouse. Hinata rubbed his hair as she said, Naruto-kun, you've been unconscious for 30 minutes. Do you remember what happened? Naruto thought for a few moments before he said, It was like I couldn't control myself, but yes, I remember everything. Are you okay, Hinata-chan? Hinata nodded. The cut wasn't as deep as it seemed, it just knocked me off balance. When I came to, I made sure to check on you, then I healed myself. There's not even a scar. Although the clothes I was wearing were ruined. Naruto sat up slowly, but it was at that moment he noticed something. Have either of you seen my hat? Shino handed the hat over to Naruto before asking. What was that chakra you emitted, Naruto? Naruto was quiet for a few moments as he put on his hat and checked his clothes. There was no blood, he could only assume it was because of Kurama's chakra. After a few moments, Naruto made a decision and asked, Shino, what do you know about Jinchuruki? I can't say I have ever heard the term before. Naruto looked away as he said, Jinchuruki are those who have had a bijou sealed inside them. We act as living storage scrolls to contain the bijou. On the day I was born, Kyuubi attacked the village and the 4th Hokage was forced to use the only newborn available at the time, me. He sealed Kyuubi inside me. Shino pushed up his glasses as he said, This is why most of the adults in the village treat you badly, correct? Naruto nodded as he stared off into the distance, his mind lost in thought. Shino spoke up once more. You are not too different from the Aburama clan. We are hosts for a hive on insects. But this doesn't make us an insect. Just like you are not the bijou you hold. Naruto nodded with a smile as he said, Thanks, Shino. Did you two already get the tokens? Hinata nodded. Yes, they had 11 tokens in all. 4 star tokens, 5 moon tokens, and 2 sun tokens. From what we could tell, it was all 7 IWA teams that attacked. Most of them were either caught or killed by your seals, Naruto-kun. Naruto shook his head. I can really understand what Pervy Sage means by the cycle of hatred now. After a few moments of silence, he turns to his 2 teammates and says, We should hurry to the top now. The longer we stay, the more likely we are to get attacked again. 2 days later, the top of the mountain, Team 8 arrived at what looked like the entrance to a temple. The door was locked, and on the door were 3 slots. Over each slot was a grayed-out symbol of a token. Naruto pulled out 3 tokens and began to slip them into the slots. As he did, each symbol began to glow. The star glowed bronze, the sun glowed gold, and the moon glowed silver. Once they were all glowing, the door opened up. As they walked into the room, there was a sign that read, "Place signal scroll into holder." Under the scroll was a podium that looked like the scroll needed to be rolled out on. Naruto stepped forward and did it. As he did, the symbols began to glow, and with a puff of smoke, Kurama appeared. She smiled at the 3 as she said, "Good job, guys, you were the 4th team to arrive. I'll escort you 3 to your rooms, you got 2 more days before this exam ends." As she led them down the hall, Naruto asked the question that was on all 3 of their minds. Who else has passed this round, Kurama-sensei? Well, the first team was the Tsunade siblings team. Second was a Kumo team, and yesterday Team 9 arrived. Naruto grinned when he heard that the Tsunade siblings were here. After we get shown to our rooms, I'm going to go find Gaara. I haven't seen him in a while. Naruto had spent the last 2 days trying to get used to his new sense. He no longer got a headache when surrounded by life, but it was still disconcerting at times. Luckily, he had managed to get it to the point he would only see auras when his eyes were closed. As he spoke, he closed his eyes for a few seconds and could see Kurama-sensei's life aura. It was a deep red, and seemed to constantly flicker as if it would disappear. They soon arrived at the room where they would be staying. It had 3 beds, with the 3rd bed being in a screened-off location. Most likely for Hinata. Moment he entered the room, Naruto headed for his bed and laid on it. "This is a good bed. I claim this one." Kurama just shook her head seeing the blonde's antics. Hinata giggled and Shino went over to the other bed. Naruto slowly stood up. "Well, I'm going to go find Gaara." Hinata, who had put her scrolls on her bed, leaned her head from behind the screen section and said, "I want to come alone with you. Just give me a couple minutes, Naruto-kun." Naruto sat back down on his bed and decided to wait. After a couple minutes, Hinata came out from the screen and the 2 headed out of the room. After 10 minutes of searching, they managed to find the Tsunade team. Naruto grinned as he saw them and closed his eyes for a few moments. Tamari's aura was green and kept moving. Kankuro's was purple and seemed like it wanted to stretch out and connect to something, while Gaara's was brown and seemed to constantly shift, almost like sand being blown by the wind. Gaara turned when he sensed someone coming up behind them. He smiled when he saw who it was. "Naruto, it is good to see you again." Naruto grinned back as he took Gaara's hand. "I agree, Gaara, it's good to see you. I hope Shikaku isn't causing as many issues as before." Gaara shook his head. "No, after Jiraiya-san took care of the seal, he hasn't been bothering me as much. He spends most of his time sleeping. The one time we talked, he claimed that he wouldn't let me sleep because, and I quote, 'If I'm not allowed to sleep because of that shit seal, then neither are you.' Either way, it's nice to be able to sleep again." Naruto shook his head. "Well, nice to know you can sleep again. Do you happen to know where the cafeteria is? I was hoping to get something to eat before heading off to get some sleep." Gaara smiled. "We were heading that way, follow us." 2 days later, main room. Yujito stood in the main room. In front of her were the 4 teams that had managed to pass. Yujito stepped forward as she said, "Congratulations for completing the 2nd round of the Chuunin Exams. The 3rd round will take place in the Reikage would be explaining this, but sadly he is stuck trying to keep Killer Bee from crashing this meeting. In a month you will all meet at Kumo's Thunderdome. There you will be competing in a tournament. Now before you go, you will have to draw lots." She pointed at a box on a table nearby. "Now you will all walk up and draw a lot. This will decide the order of the tournament." After a few minutes they had all drawn their lots. Yujito, who had been writing on a clipboard, held it up. "Here are the tournament matches. Match 1, Naruto Uzumaki vs. Rock Lee. Match 2, Gaara Sabaka vs. Shino Aburame. Match 3, Kankuro Sabaka vs. Niji Hyuga. Match 4, Samui vs. Tenten Higurashi. Match 5, Omoi vs. Tamari Sabaka. Match 6, Hinata Yul vs. Karui. Match 7, 3-way battle between victors of first 3 matches. Match 8, 3-way battle between victors of the last 3 matches. Match 9, winner of Match 7 vs. winner of Match 8. Yujito put away the clipboard. Now your Jonin-sensei will escort you to the cable cars that will take you back to the base of the mountain. I look forward to seeing you all in a month." 3 hours later, at the base of the mountain, Kurinai looked at her team as she said, "Okay, so we have a month for training. Shino, since your father was one of the escort shinobi, he will be training you. Hinata, you will be training with me. Naruto, Jiraiya sent a message, you're going to be training with Kakashi for this month. Don't worry, Kakashi plans to take it seriously. You are to meet him at the ramen stand in Kumo's main plaza tomorrow at noon." When he told me this message, he told me to stress that he would actually be on time. Naruto looked at Kurinai in shock. Kurinai nodded. "I know, shocking. But don't worry, when he actually says he will be on time, he usually keeps his word." Kurinai looked at the three before she said, "Now I just want to say I'm proud of all three of you. I expect you to do your best in the final part. Now you all have the rest of the day off." With that, the team went their separate ways. Shino went to find his father, Kurinai to go talk to Asuma, and Naruto and Hinata decided to spend time together. The next day, Naruto sat in the ramen stand in the main plaza of Kumo. He was currently waiting for Kakashi to arrive. As he waited, he finished his 10th bowl of ramen. That's when the voice sounded behind him. "I see you can still put away as much ramen as ever, Naruto." Naruto turned and smiled as he said, "It's good to see you, Kakashi-sensei. It's really nice that you arrived on time." Kakashi gave him a nice smile. He was happy that Naruto didn't hold a grudge against him. "Well, I'm looking forward to training you for the next month. I want to make up for being a bad teacher before." Naruto grinned as he said, "Then how about we finish lunch, then we can get to one of the training grounds granted to us." Kakashi nodded as he sat down. "Sounds like a plan to me." Omake 1, the first special trap, the Teletubbies torture. The IWA teams had separated into 7 teams and were coming at the circle from all directions to block off an escape. The genin with a broken nose was leading his team's entrance from the northeast. As they were within 50 meters of the circle, everything went black. The group soon found themselves in a meadow with rolling hills. It was still dark, but the sun was rising. In front of them was a large hill with a door in it. They heard a small laugh. They looked up and to their shock found that the sun was a baby's head. It was at that moment that some upbeat music began to play. As it played, a voice spoke up. "Over the hills and far away, Teletubbies come to play." That's when 4 furry creatures came out of the door in the hill and began to skip around them. Each was a different color. There was a green one, a yellow one, a red one, and a purple one. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, Teletubbies, time for Teletubbies, time for Teletubbies, time for Teletubbies. The 4 creatures stopped and began to dance in place. The song continued. "Tinky Winky." The purple one raised its arms and shouted, "Tinky Winky!" "Dipsy!" The green one spun around as it spoke. "Dipsy!" "La la!" The third one jumped as it said with a high-pitched voice, "La la!" "Puh!" The red one pointed at them as it said in a surprisingly deep voice, "Puh!" They started dancing again as the song resumed. "Teletubbies! Teletubbies! Say, hello! Ayo!" The song kept going on and on. After the song ended, it would begin once again. After an hour of this, the poor genin were curled into a ball whimpering. They would be found a few days later by Killer Bee, while still under the effects of the genjutsu. When he freed them, the 3 clung to him claiming he was their savior. Omake 2, the second special trap, Slender Nova, an IWA genin team moved in from the southwest. One of them, a young man with brown hair named Taki, stepped on a certain patch of ground. It was then everything went dark for him. Suddenly words appeared before them. "Welcome to Sender the 8 pages." Taki looked at the words and said to his team, "I have a bad feeling about this. Highly recommended that timestamps are read in SpongeBob narrator voice." 5 minutes later, when Taki's sight cleared, he found himself alone in a forest. In front of him was a clearing, with what looked like party decorations. At that moment an ominous voice sounded and a tall pale man with no face wearing a suit appeared. "Welcome to my party!" Taki slowly backed away from the weird cackling man. He walked through the woods and soon found a page on a tree that read, "Why you leave me, BBY?" Taki nodded as he looked at the page. "Now I got a page." Suddenly the voice from the clearing sounded from behind him. "Now I know which one you are, because everyone else has 0. Taki stiffened as he felt the cold presence behind him and said, "Fuck." 5 minutes later, Taki was running through the forest, the presence following him. Taki. Go away. What was that about a party? I don't want to go to a party. What was that about a party and ice cream? Leave me alone, I don't want any ice cream. What was that about a party? Taki, who was now hiding in a tunnel, said. You don't even know where I am. The voice, now muffled, answered. I know exactly where you are. Really? Then describe it? The voice answered with a weird accent. A tunnel. Fuck! The insane cackling sounded behind him. Taki took off running, only to see the man standing before him, tentacles coming from his back. The man laughed once more as he said, I shall spare your life this time. But I'll be back. Taki, who was now curled in a ball, said, Fuck! I will let you hear the deaths of your friends one by one. The man raised his arms as he said, You will hear their screams. Please don't kill my friends. You will hear their screams. With those words he disappeared, leaving Taki curled in a ball on the ground. Fuck. Chapter 8: The Finals. It was the day of the finals, and all 12 Chuunin hopefuls were standing in the arena. In front of them was a man with shoulder-length blonde hair and violet eyes. He was looking at the Kage box where the Raikage and the Hokage were sitting. The Kazekage hadn't been picked yet, thus the Suna team sensei, Baki, was sitting with the Raikage, and Hokage as the representative from Sunagakure. The Raikage stood up and spoke with a loud voice. We all know what we're here for. So let the Chuunin Exam finals begin. The blonde-haired referee stepped forward as he said while holding a Fuinjutsu-enhanced microphone. Hello everyone, I am the referee for today's matches. My name is Q. Now all combatants except Naruto Uzumaki and Rock Lee, please leave the arena. Soon Naruto and Rock Lee were the only people left in the arena beside Q. Before she had left, Hinata had given him a kiss on the cheek for luck. Q walked between them as he announced. The first battle of the Kumo Chuunin finals. Are both combatants ready? Naruto drew Shingetsu and slid into his starting stance. I'm ready. Rock Lee got into his stance as well. I am ready as well. Q grinned before he said, Begin, and jumped away from the arena, landing on top of the wall. Rock Lee looked at Naruto as he said, Shall we show the audience our flames of youth, my eternal rival? Naruto grinned as he said, Yes, now come at me, Lee. Rock Lee grinned before taking off his weights and tossing them away. He knew they would be no use in the coming battle. They formed twin craters where they landed. Moments after they landed, Rock Lee charged at Naruto in a green-blue and threw a punch at his chest. Naruto slowly moved out of the way, using minimal movement to dodge the attack. As he did, he struck out with his right leg, attempting to kick Lee in the stomach, only for the green-clad boy to block it with one of his legs. The two began to launch high-speed attacks at each other. Naruto using kicks and sword slashes, while Lee made use of kicks and punches. They were moving at such high speeds that they were a blur to the civilian spectators. As Naruto deflected another punch with his left leg, Shingetsu began to glow gold, the aura covering Naruto's body before he stepped back, then flipped into the air. Meteor shower. As he was in the air, Shingetsu was thrust forward, becoming a blur of stabs at Rock Lee, who was forced to dodge multiple golden glowing thrusts. Rock Lee was forced to flip away before he stopped around 10 meters away from Naruto. Naruto landed on the ground and kept his eyes on Lee. Lee grinned and gave Naruto a thumbs up. Yash, Naruto, your flames of youth are burning extremely brightly. I must match your flame's intensity. Lee crouched down as he yelled out. Kaimon, gate of opening, open! A burst of chakra was released from Lee's body. Naruto frowned. This would be the true test of his training. Lee didn't know the meaning of the word hold back. The fact he was opening the gates, something he only did when Guy-sensei gave him permission, proved this. Most likely Guy had given him permission beforehand. Naruto knew that Lee could open 5 gates. He had actually seen him open the gates before, during a spar with him. He still got shivers remembering it. Luckily Lee had only gone up to 3 gates when he did it. He just hoped his haki would be up to the task. Because he knew once he opened more gates he would have a harder time keeping up, even with what he was about to do. Lee rushed at him so quickly he almost disappeared. It was only the warning from his haki that allowed Naruto to dodge out of the way. Naruto kept dodging around each attack by mere inches. He grit his teeth as he realized he had to take a gamble. He made sure to dodge a little late so that Rock Lee's kick connected, sending him into the air. As he flew up, his grip loosened on Shingetsu, making the sentient blade fall to the ground blade first. Lee kicked him higher 3 times before unleashing his bandages and wrapping him up tightly, covering him up to his face with the bandages. With that, Lee quickly pulled the blonde towards the ground, and at the last second he released him and jumped away, sending Naruto crashing into the ground, causing a large crater to appear and dust to obscure him. What Lee didn't notice was as he let go, that Naruto's face became a shiny black color. No one was expecting what happened next. Naruto's voice sounded out as the dust clouds slowly cleared. Damn, that would have seriously hurt me if I hadn't defended myself. The dust cloud cleared, revealing Naruto dusting off his clothes. He reached down and pulled Shingetsu out of the ground. Shall we continue, Lee? Yash, your flames of youth burn brighter than ever. Lee crouched down once more as he shouted out. Kumon, gate of healing, Simon, gate of life, open! With that, Lee's hair stood on end and his skin turned red. Naruto grinned as he held up his arms. I guess I need to level the playing field a bit. He made a hand sign before shouting out. Kai! With that, golden bands of kanji appeared on his limbs and torso before disappearing. The two disappeared, and all that was heard was the sound of clashing attacks. Only the Chuunin and Jonin could keep up, along with a few of the Chuunin hopefuls. Suddenly there was a crash as something hit the wall. It was revealed to be Naruto, who pulled himself out of the wall. As he stood up, Rock Lee had stopped and was gathering his energy for his next attack. Naruto grimaced as he said, Ugh, I didn't want to have to use this yet. Naruto sheathed Shingetsu before he coated his right leg in chakra. He set his chakra-clad foot on the ground and began to spin at high speeds. When he stopped, he lifted his now glowing leg. The foot of the devil, Diable Jam. The heat I generated from all that spinning will burn my kicks straight through you. Now shall we see what is stronger, the flames of hell, or the 8 inner gates. Flashback. During training, Naruto set his foot down, his face set in a grimace from the burns he had sustained with the newly learned Diable Jam. A couple days ago, he had managed to finally ignite his chakra so he could use the technique. Kakashi, who was leaning against a tree, sent him a nice smile. So it seems currently your limit for that technique is 5 kicks a day. It also seems you can't actually put said leg down while it's active, or the chakra runs out into the ground. Kakashi gestured to the ground where a huge scorch mark had been burned into the ground by the chakra running off. We'll need to work on that, as well as the number of kicks you can use with it. The Diable Jam was an exceedingly dangerous technique, for both the user and the one who it was used on. By coating the user's legs in chakra before spinning at high speed, they can ignite their legs with extremely hot flames. These flames increase the power of the user's kicks, but at a price. If the user overuses said technique in the earlier stages, they can do irreparable harm to their leg. But the risks do not come without reward. If the user masters the Diable Jam, they will gain an immunity to fire, thus allowing the user to use Diable Jam without any risk. Present time, Naruto launched himself forward, his foot lancing out, just as Lee raced towards him. Naruto's kick just barely missed Lee, it grazed his side, burning his jumpsuit. Lee managed to ignore it and kicked Naruto hard into the air. The preparation steps for the Hidden Lotus were ready. He began to kick and punch Naruto through the air at high speeds. Naruto grit his teeth and used haki to cushion the blows. As Lee kicked and punched him, he opened the 4th and 5th gate. As he was about to make the final blow through, Naruto managed to block said attack with a kick. Naruto grinned before grabbing Lee's arm as he said, Sorry Lee, you lose. Naruto's glowing leg began to swing towards Lee, who was being held in place. Diable Jam, flambéed shot. Devil's leg, flambé shot. His foot connected with Lee, and with a grunt of exertion, Naruto sent Lee rocketing towards the ground. When Lee landed, he made a massive crater. This new crater put the one Naruto had made earlier to shame. Naruto landed on the ground, scorching the earth as the heat bled from his glowing leg. The dust cleared to show Rock Lee was unconscious, with a huge burn mark on his side. Q jumped into the arena and checked Lee's pulse before saying, Rock Lee is unable to continue, the winner by knockout, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto grinned as he said, It looks like it's 10-9, my favor Lee. With those words, Naruto walked towards the corridor that led to the contestant box. The Raikage whistled. Goddamn Jiraiya, you got a pair of monsters there. Jiraiya laughed as he said, Rock Lee is Mike Guy's apprentice, while Naruto is mine. He's also been trained by Kakashi. Kakashi wanted to make it up to him for dropping the ball right after Naruto became a genin. Oddly enough, when Kakashi gets motivated, he's a pretty good teacher. Baki leaned forward to watch the medics take Rock Lee to the infirmary. Luckily, Tsunade had agreed to help with healing the contestants so there wouldn't be long-term damage, hopefully. They're both easily Chuunin in skill. That boy Rock Lee is reckless though, he fell right into Naruto's trap. Your apprentice is quite clever, Jiraiya-sama. Jiraiya nodded. Naruto has already had a bit of a talent for figuring out ways to defeat his opponents. He once stabbed a kunai through his own and his opponent's hand to hold them in place before striking them with the finishing blow. A frowned as he said, "That sounds rather reckless. If he wasn't the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi, I would have called him insane." I noticed Jiraiya looking at him, and waved it off. "I have 2 Jinchuriki who are completely in harmony with their bijou. Yujito told me that Matatabi had sensed Kyuubi in Naruto." Jiraiya nodded. "You're right, it was reckless. But the shinobi he was fighting was Jonin level, elite Jonin level in fact. With the Konoha Jonin and Genin, Might Guy hung his head. It is such a shame that Lee lost to Naruto. But Naruto's flames of youth are burning brighter than ever. You did an excellent job training him this past month, Kakashi." Kakashi looked at Guy with a bored look on his face. "What did you say, Guy?" Sadly, the bored expression was ruined by the fact he was putting his hitai back down. Guy didn't seem to notice through as he clenched his fist and grit his teeth. "Damn your hip waist, Kakashi!" Kakashi, after fixing his hitai, said. "I didn't teach him any of that through. But I'm pretty sure how he escaped the primary lotus was something we worked on over the past month." Kurinai turned back to look at the two as she asked, "What was it, Kakashi?" "I'd barely noticed thanks to my Sharingan. But at the last moment as Lee let go of Naruto to drive him into the ground, Naruto's head turned a shiny black. That's a sign of haki. He must have used haki to absorb the impact." Guy looked at Kakashi in shock as he said, "Naruto has already learned haki?" Apparently his team was ambushed in the Thunder Peaks, and it caused him to awaken his haki. Guy nodded. "That would make sense. Haki is willpower given form." Asuma, who had stayed with his team to support the other 2 teams, asked the question on the Genin's mind. "What does haki do exactly?" Guy spoke slowly. "Haki is a power that was said to exist before chakra. As I said before, it is willpower given form. Those who have haki can sense the intent of others, allowing them to dodge incoming attacks, even if said attack comes from their blind spot. It also allows them to coat their body and weapons in a black armor, which can increase damage and allow them to touch things that normally can't be touched." Kakashi nodded. What Guy said is true. It was quite annoying sparring with him. He would be able to dodge all my surprise attacks, and he kicked apart a fireball. The Kurinai, Asuma, and the Genin of Team 10 looked at Kakashi in shock. Shikamaru spoke up. "Troublesome. So what you're saying is Naruto is now able to destroy jutsu. It was only a C-rank jutsu, but yeah, haki allows him to do that." Asuma put out his cigarette as he said, "So what all did you work with him on?" "Well, I helped him work on his nature manipulation. I also taught him several ninjutsu of each of his natures. I taught him the body flicker, improved his ability to use the Rasengan, and a few other things." Asuma looked at him like he had grown 3 more heads. "How did you teach him all that?" Kakashi chuckled. "Lots and lots of shadow clones. I might have ended up increasing my own chakra pool trying to keep up with him." Back in the arena, Q spoke up. "Will Gaara Sabaku of Sunigakure and Shino Aburaim of Konoha please enter the arena?" The 2 genin entered the ring. Shino knew he couldn't win. He was just hoping to drain some chakra and weaken Gaara enough for the semi-finals. He also hoped that Naruto would gain enough information from this fight to win the semi-finals. Q raised his hand. "Are both contestants ready?" The 2 stoic individuals just nodded. "Then let the second match begin." With those words, he once again fled to the top of the arena wall. The cork on Gaara's gourd flew off and sand settled around him just as Shino raised his arm, releasing a cloud of insects. The Aburaim heir charged forward, the insects of his flowing after him. He dodged around some sand shuriken launched by Gaara and threw a fist at the red head. Sand rose up to meet him, but Shino was expecting that. He slipped some insects into the sand with each strike before jumping back. Gaara sent multiple waves of sand at him, that he barely managed to dodge. He waved his arm and a ball of insects was fired back at Gaara, who blocked them with a sand shield. Shino smiled behind his collar. "Good, it's going well." It was at that moment that Gaara lost control of the sand that he had been blocking the attacks with. Gaara's eyes went wide as he felt the connection to the sand be cut off. "What?" Shino smiled as he held up a beetle on his finger. "These aren't normal Kikaichu, parasitic destruction insects. These are a special subspecies of Kikaichu. This breed of Kikaichu are able to devour only a single nature of chakra. In exchange for that, they are able to do it at 10 times the speed of the normal Kikaichu. They also gain an immunity to said chakra nature. The nature these Kikaichu eat is earth. It also means you can't destroy them with your sand. It was like his battle against Naruto all over again. If he held back, he wouldn't be able to win against Shino. I see, then I will have to go all out. Gaara lifted his hand and almost all the sand that was laying at his feet rose and began to rush at Shino. Sand coffin. Shino was forced to dodge and avoid the sand attacks for 2 minutes. But when hands made of sand appeared beneath him and grabbed him, Shino was quickly caught and engulfed in sand. Gaara spoke as he lifted up the restrained Shino. As he did this, he had his remaining sand quickly creating more sand for his use. Please surrender, I would rather not have to suffocate a friend of Naruto's. Shino shook his head in answer. Before Gaara could completely cover his face through, Shino collapsed into more Kikaichu that quickly infected the sand, making it useless. Gaara heard a sound behind him, and his shield blocked another strike at him. He turned to see the real Shino jumping back. An insect clone? He barely took notice of his sand falling limply to the ground. Shino nodded calmly. While on the inside he was nervous, he was running low on chakra. Using the subspecies of Kikaichu was extremely draining. He hoped that what he had done so far would help Naruto out. Gaara frowned. It seemed he couldn't rely on his sand much right now. He would have to reveal it. He began to go through hand signs. Wind style, great breakthrough. With that he waved his arm, releasing a massive blast of wind that sent Shino flying back. Shino managed to maneuver himself so that he landed on his feet. With some chakra he stopped skidding pretty quickly. I didn't know you used anything other than your sand, Gaara-san. Well, when you faced Naruto and that talking sword of his, you tend to learn a few new tricks. Shino pushed back up his sunglasses, which were slipping a little low. Let me guess, you learned them to help you counter Shingetsu? Gaara nodded. Yes, Shingetsu did exactly what your Kikaichu did. So shall we begin the real battle? Shino raised his hand as he said. Referee, I surrender. If Gaara had eyebrows, he would have raised one. Shino just looked at him for a few moments as Q announced the winner. Once he did, the two of them left as they did, he said. The entire reason I was facing you was so Naruto could gather information for the next battle. I can't win against you, as my Kikaichu refuses to eat your chakra directly. I was stuck on defense, and the moment you revealed you could use wind ninjutsu, I had no choice but to surrender. Fair enough. Q's voice sounded through the stadium once again. Will Kankuro Sabaku of Tsunade and Niji Hyuga of Konoha please enter the arena? In Kage Box, Baki spoke up. The Aburame boy did quite well facing Gaara. Jiraiya nodded as he said. Shino is a natural strategist. The only one better at planning out strategies in their class is Shikamaru. It likely helped that Shino was part of the team sent to stop Gaara during the invasion. He was the one who defeated Kankuro. Baki flinched when the invasion was brought up. I was against the invasion. Raza-sama should have just discussed things with Hiruzen-sama. He shook his head. Raza was never too smart. I might be short-tempered, but I can't understand what the point of that was. Most of the elemental nations had heard about the failed invasion. Baki, desperate to change the subject, pointed to the arena. It looks like the next fighters have entered the ring. The arena, Niji and Kankuro stood across from each other. Kankuro had already unsealed his 2 puppets for the match. One was a 3-eyes puppet with multiple limbs, Crow. The other had a long head with horns, Black Ant. Kankuro grinned as he said, It seems we get to have our match that I had to surrender in the last Chuunin Exams, Hyuga-san. Niji gave a small smile. Yes, you could say it's our fate to face each other. Unless you feel like surrendering again? Kankuro shook his head. Nope, I am either going to win this match, or I'm going to go down like a true shinobi, by taking you with me. Q raised his hand. Are both fighters ready? After getting the confirmation, he said, Let the third match of the Chuunin Exam finals begin. He once again fled to his safe space. Moment it began, Kankuro launched Crow forward, the puppet flying at Niji with blades exposed. Niji dodged around the attacks from the puppet. Each of the puppet's movements were quick, but mechanical. Niji thrust out a finger coated in chakra and cut through a chakra thread. He kept doing this to try and cut Kankuro's connection to Crow. But Kankuro repaired the threads each time he severed one. With a twitch of his left hand, Black Ant rushed forward at Niji. Niji was now facing a battle on two fronts as each puppet attacked from a different direction. What made it worse was that Niji couldn't really parry the blades for fear of getting poisoned. So he was forced to dodge each attack. Black Ant swung at Niji while Crow came at the exact opposite direction, making it impossible for Niji to fully dodge. He had no choice but to reveal it. He began to pivot on one foot as his skin glowed with chakra. Rotation! A spinning dome of chakra appeared around him, forcing both puppets back. Kankuro whistled. So that's the famous rotation of the Hyuga clan. I didn't know they taught it to the branch family. Niji smiled. I learned it through watching the main family. It took me close to 3 months to recreate it perfectly. But it's not all I've managed to recreate. He then crouched down as a yin-yang symbol appeared beneath him. You're in range of my divination. 8 trigrams, 64 palm. Niji rushed forward before Kankuro could react and began to attack him. 2 palm. 4 palm. 8 palm. 16 palm. 32 palm. 64 palm. Kankuro was blown back by the fierce assault on him. But he had a trump card. As he was thrown back, he activated the hidden chakra storage seal on his left palm and his chakra strings sprang to life. Before Niji could react, he was grabbed by the black ant, which had appeared in his blind spot and pulled into its open chest compartment. With a flick of Kankuro's fingers, the inside of Black Ant was filled with a paralyzing poison. As Kankuro lay on the ground, he smirked as he said, I told you I would take you down with me. With those words he passed out, Niji trapped inside Black Ant and unable to move. Q reappeared in the arena as he checked Kankuro. He then checked on Niji by using his sensory jutsu. He could tell that Niji was alive, but paralyzed. Both fighters are unable to continue. This match is a draw. In the Kage box, Jiraiya was looking at the arena in confusion. How did Kankuro do that? His chakra was sealed off. Baki smiled as he raised his palm. Kankuro has a pair of chakra storage seals on his palms. They can't be seen if he doesn't activate them, and he doesn't need chakra to activate them. He can use them in an emergency to power his chakra threads. Since Niji let his guard down, Kankuro was able to trap him. A laughed as he said, I think that Kankuro kid is Chuunin material. The Hyuga I'm not so sure about. Although I will admit he's talented, I mean recreating the Hyuga clan's most famous techniques just by watching them be used? That's some scary good talent right there. Jiraiya nodded. I agree with you, I wonder who will win the next match. The arena. Will Samui of Kumogakur and Tenten Higurashi of Konoha please enter the arena? When the blonde-haired genin of Kumo and the brown-haired genin with twin buns arrived in the arena, Q raised his hand. Are both fighters ready? After getting confirmation, he said, Let the 5th match of the Chuunin Exam finals begin. Samui drew her tanto and stood ready to face her opponent. Tenten grinned as she pulled out a scroll and unsealed a pair of combat daggers. The two began to slowly circle each other, weary of what the other had up their hands. After a few moments, Tenten rushed forward and thrust one of her daggers forward. Samui parried the strike with her tanto and spun slightly to push the dagger past her. Tenten's other dagger came flashing up but was blocked by Samui's tanto. Suddenly the tanto began to glow blue and much to Tenten's shock the dagger was quickly cut in half. She was forced to jump back to avoid getting stabbed. Tenten frowned. I should have expected a lightning affinity. I guess I'll have to unveil the big gun sooner than I planned. She unsealed 2 large scrolls. Before she could unravel it, Samui raced through hand signs. Not if I can help it. Lightning style, flash pillar. Samui's body released an extremely bright light that blinded Tenten, but it cleared pretty quickly and Tenten saw Samui racing towards her. Oh no, you don't! Tenten placed the scrolls at her side as she quickly raced through the hand signs and jumped into the air. As she jumped into the air, the scrolls unraveled and spun around her. Twin rising dragons! With that she unleashed a barrage of various weapons onto Samui. After a couple minutes, Samui was on the ground unconscious and bleeding. Tenten landed on the ground and closed her scrolls. It was at that moment she felt a sharp pain on the back of her neck and everything went dark. As she fell, the Samui that was unconscious on the ground disappeared with a glimmer. The real Samui stood over Tenten. Lucky B-sensei got C-sensei to teach me that genjutsu. I would have had a hard time dodging all those weapons. Q checked on Tenten. Winner by knockout, Samui. In the Kage box, Jiraiya sighed. That was a pretty sad display from Tenten. A chuckled as he said. She's a student of my brother B and my bodyguard C. Baki spoke up. She did good using that, it allowed her to hide her skills for the rest of the battle. The blonde bodyguard of A's chuckled. He had been quite just like the other bodyguards for most of the finals. But now he spoke up. You're quite right, Baki-san. Samui is hiding a lot of her skills. A spoke up. Something I've been curious about. Who do you think will be the winner of the finals, Jiraiya, Baki? Baki tapped his leg slowly. I would like to say Gaara, but he will have to defeat Naruto first. I don't know how much stronger Naruto has come through since their last fight. Aside as he said. As much as I would like to root for my own genin, I am only confident in Samui. Her two teammates aren't quite as powerful. Jiraiya smiled. It will be Naruto and Hinata in the finals, and Naruto will win. A and Baki both turned to him. Baki was the one who asked. Why do you say that, Jiraiya? Naruto is my apprentice, so I know how strong he was before the Chuunin exams. He trained with Kakashi, who trained him pretty well according to the reports they both sent me. Hinata is Tsunade's apprentice. She's also trained by Kurenai Yul and Anko Mitarashi. While she's extremely skilled, I am putting money on Naruto beating her. Although, he might surrender since she's his girlfriend. Jiraiya's guard, the Umbu cat, chuckled as she said. I could see that. In the arena, Q's voice sounded out once more. Will Omoi of Kumogakure and Tamari Sabako of Sunagakure please enter the arena? Omoi walked down into the arena. Tamari instead jumped out of the fighter box and floated down into the arena on her fan. Omoi gulped when he saw that. A battle fan user would be really difficult for him to fight. Are both fighters ready? Both of them gave confirmation. Q raised his hand as he said. Let the fifth match of the Chuunin exam finals begin. He jumped away to his sanctuary on the wall. Omoi drew his katana and charged forward. Tamari swung her fan, releasing a blast of wind at Omoi. The young swordsman rolled out of the way and swung his katana at Tamari, flickering with lightning. Tamari blocked it with a kunai that was glowing green. With a grin, she kicked Omoi away and then swung her fan once again, releasing a massive wave of wind that sent Omoi flying. He crashed into the wall hard and was knocked out. Q jumped down and checked on him. Winner by knockout. Tamari Sabaku. In Kage box, A sighed as he facepalmed. Omoi got the worst possible opponent. Hopefully this will make him start to focus on things other than his kenjutsu. Jiraiya nodded. I don't think he's quite ready to be a Chuunin yet. A nodded. I agree with you, he focuses too much on kenjutsu without having a backup plan. Karui is the same. Although according to B, Omoi is the best swordsman out of the three. Baki nodded. Sadly, Tamari is also overspecialized. But she is an extremely skilled tactician, so it makes up for it at least a little. In the arena, will Hinata Yul of Konohagakure and Karui of Kumogakure please enter the arena? Soon Karui and Hinata were in the arena facing each other. Q looked at the two. Are both fighters ready? Karui nodded as she drew her sword. Hinata said with a smile. I am ready, Q-san. Then let the sixth match of the Chuunin exam finals begin. Karui charged forward and slashed at Hinata. Her blade swung through the air, aiming right for Hinata's neck. Before the blade could reach through, there was a clang as it was stopped by a staff that appeared in Hinata's hands. Karui's eyes went wide. This is surprising, a Hyuga who uses more than just the Junken? Hinata spun her staff one-handed as she said. Apparently I wasn't strong enough to be a Hyuga, so I was banished. No matter how well she hit it, she was still pissed off at the elders for forcing her father to banish her. The only elder she wasn't passed off at was her grandfather, who is on her father's side and is against the caged bird's seal. Karui frowned for a few seconds before she decided to drop the subject and swung at Hinata again. Hinata deflected the blow with her staff and then thrust out her palm at Karui, forcing the redhead to backstep to avoid it. The battle evolved into a deadly dance. As each weapon strike was blocked and each palm strike was dodged, the battle went on for easily 5 minutes. As Karui backstepped to dodge yet another Juho strike, she was shocked to see the former Hyuga race through hand signs before breaking in deeply. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. With that, Hinata released a large fireball that Karui was forced to dodge. Okay, now I've seen it all. A Hyuga using ninjutsu. I know you were banished, but still I thought that clan taught you all to never use anything but the gentle fist. Hinata gave Karui a small smile. I don't believe in restricting myself like that. With those words, she spun her staff and tried to strike Karui in the chest. The Kumo Genin blocked the strike with her sword. As she did, she was forced to lean to the side to avoid a Juho strike to the shoulder. The two disengaged and Karui frowned as she said, "How is it my sword hasn't cut through your staff yet?" "I'm channeling lightning chakra through my sword." It wasn't Hinata that answered but Hinode. "Oh, I was wondering why I felt tingly every time I struck that sword." "Sorry dear, but I'm in a completely different league from your sword." Karui stared at the sentient weapon in shock. "Did your staff just talk?" Hinode responded, her voice just dripping with sarcasm. "No, it's just your imagination." "Good God, I've been spending too much time with Shingetsu, haven't I?" Hinata giggled as she said, "Don't worry Hinode, you'll always be my partner, even if you become just like Shingetsu." Hinata quickly leaned back to the point her arms were touching the ground. The reason she had done this was to dodge the strike that came from Karui. Hinata used her hands as a pivot and spun before flipping back away from Karui. As she did, she pulled two things from her pouch with her free hand and threw one of them at Karui. Karui reacted too late and hissed in pain as there was a piercing pain in her right shoulder, which then went completely limp. She looked at her shoulder. Embedded in her shoulder was a single samban. There aren't any nerve clusters there. Her eyes went wide. "You managed to hit one of my chakra points with a samban." Hinata smiled as she spun the second samban that she still held in her hand. "It took a while to get it right. But I managed to create a way for the Juken to be used at long range." Karui pulled the samban out of her shoulder, but her arm was still limp. Damn it. Karui was forced to block a strike from Hinata's staff with one hand. She didn't know if she could win anymore. She had lost half of her fighting strength with that one move. She grit her teeth. She wasn't going to give up. She parried another strike. She would have to focus on parrying since she couldn't exactly block with only one hand. Hinata's fingers slipped through her defense and struck the shoulder of her sword hand. Within a second her arm had gone numb, and another strike from Hinode had knocked her sword out of her hand. Before she could react, Hinata's palm was right in front of her. "You lose, Karui-san." Karui sighed as she said, "It's your win, Yul-san." Q reappeared in the arena and said, "Winner Hinata Yul. There will now be a 45-minute break before the semifinals begin." In Kage box, Jiraiya sighed as he rested his head in his hands. Hinata actually managed to finish developing it. That girl is a true prodigy. When the Hyuga clan learn of this, the elders will go mental. A laughed as he said, "So the Hyuga banished the girl for being weak, but she has so much potential. That long-distance Juken is terrifying." Baki leaned forward as he frowned. "I honestly wonder how she did it. From what I heard, the Hyuga had tried for years, but eventually gave up." Jiraiya nodded. "They did, they even tried senbans like Hinata did. She hasn't explained how she had done it. Apparently she had gotten the training in their use from Anko." Baki shivered. He had met the Snake Mistress during his time in Konoha during the last Chuunin Exam finals. The woman gave him shivers. In a corridor of the stadium, 40 minutes later, Naruto and Hinata were cuddling on a bench. The two had gotten lunch, and then had spent the rest of their time just enjoying each other's company. It helped with the anxiety that came from their upcoming matches. Hinata would be facing two others in her match, while Naruto's would be a rematch with Gaara, not the most relaxing event. It was Naruto who broke the silence. "What do you think of your next match, Hinata-chan?" "It's going to be difficult, but I believe I can win." "Tamari will be the bigger problem, simply because of how much damage she can cause with her ninjutsu." "What about your match, Naruto-kun?" "Honestly, I wish I was fighting Tamari and Samui instead." "Want to trade?" Hinata giggled but shook her head. Naruto sighed as he said, "I was afraid of that. Honestly, Gaara was difficult to fight before, and he was practically insane with rage. Now he's covered up his weakness of relying solely on his sand. Yeah, this is going to be a difficult fight. It also means most likely you'll get to see some of my new tricks." Hinata smiled as she said, "Oh, that will make the finals easier." Naruto smirked. "Oh, don't expect me to let you win." Hinata stuck out her tongue at him cutely in response. She knew he would never let her win a spar. It would be a disservice to both of them. No one got stronger by holding back in a fight. It was at that moment that Q's voice sounded throughout the stadium. "The semifinals will be starting in 5 minutes. Will all fighters please return to the fighter box? Also, will the person in charge of watching over Killer B please report to the front of the stadium? He has escaped confinement." Hinata looked up as she said, "I really hope that last part was meant as a joke." Naruto chuckled as he said, I actually got to talk to Killer Bee over the last month. The guy's pretty cool, but apparently it locks him up for the Chuunin exam. Apparently the one time he didn't, Killer Bee hijacked the comm system and started rapping. Apparently it was quite the sight to see. It was chasing him around the arena. Bee was running and jumping to escape, all the while rapping. For those wondering, sadly I doubt I could do this omake. I suck at rapping. I have a different plan for this chapter's omake. They both stood up as Hinata shook her head. Maybe it's for the best that Killer Bee is confined, at least until the end of the exams. With those words they headed towards the fighter's box. The arena. 5 minutes later Q spoke, his voice reaching all corners of the stadium. Now that the break is over, it's time for the semi-final matches. Will Naruto Uzumaki and Gaara Sabaka please enter the ring? Gaara once again appeared in a whirl of sand. A couple seconds Naruto appeared in a whirl of flames and wind. Naruto grinned at Gaara as he said, "It seems someone is eager to have his ass kicked again." Gaara returned Naruto's grin with a smile of his own. "No, I will be winning this time, Naruto-san." Q the announcer spoke up. "Since you're both ready, let the 7th match of the Chuunin exam finals begin." The cork on Gaara's gourd flew off and sand quickly flew out and settled around him. As it did he went through hand signs before taking in a deep breath. Wind style, air bullet. With that he blew out 5 small bullets that quickly rushed at Naruto. Naruto responded by drawing Shingetsu and cutting through the 2 that would have hit him, dispelling them in the process. Naruto spun Shingetsu as he smiled. "Well, someone's an eager tanuki." Gaara nodded. "I will win this match, Naruto-san." With that Gaara waved his hand and sent sand flying towards Naruto, trying to bind him. Naruto flipped over the sand. As he did his sword spun around, slashing through the sand and draining it of chakra quickly. The sand fell to the ground, cut off from Gaara's control. Gaara managed to keep his eye from twitching at that. It was annoying having his sand taken from him, and it had been done by 2 different people today made it more annoying. Suddenly a sleepy voice sounded in his mind. "So the brat with Shingetsu is fighting us, huh? Shikaku, you know that sword?" "Oh yeah, my dad was the one who made the sword. It's sentient and can drain chakra faster than a sponge soaking up water." "Are there any weaknesses?" "Well, not really. Shingetsu is specially made to drain chakra. It will even drain your chakra if it cuts you. Hell, if someone who he doesn't like holds him, they will be drained of chakra in seconds." As this conversation was going on, Gaara was keeping Naruto back with waves of sand and wind attacks. How do I defeat him then? Best bet? Try and disarm him. Shingetsu can only drain chakra from a body if they're holding the handle, or if they're cut by the blade. Chakra outside the body will be absorbed by just coming near it. Thus your best chance is to try and knock Shingetsu out of his hand. Honestly, of the 4, Shingetsu is the worst possible one for you to face. After this you really need to get better at taijutsu, or maybe choose a weapon. Gaara released a wall of wind to knock Naruto back as he said, "Yeah, good idea, Shikaku. You might want to focus on this fight. I doubt you'll win, but doesn't mean you have to make it easy for him." As Gaara had been talking to his inner plush toy, Naruto had been dodging an assault of sand and wind. He dodged most of the attacks through acrobatic maneuvers. While the attacks he couldn't dodge he slashed through with Shingetsu. This had been going on for 2 minutes now, and Naruto was starting to get annoyed. Naruto dodged around the wave of wind and grit his teeth. He had been right, Gaara was much harder to battle when he was saying. He needed something long-range to punch through Gaara's defenses. But the only thing he had was that. Flashback 2 weeks ago, Naruto smiled as he held up the Rasengan. He had mastered making the blue spinning ball of doom with one hand. Kakashi gave him a nice smile as he said, "Well, good job there, Naruto. Now you no longer have to use shadow clones to make them." Naruto watched the spinning sphere when he suddenly had a thought. What if he tried to code it in hockey? Would it hold it together and allow it to be used at long range? Present time, Naruto held up his hand and quickly formed a Rasengan. When it was formed, everyone in the stadium was shocked to see one of the 4th Hokage's signature jutsu being used by a genin, one who looked like a young Minato Namake's no less. But they were in for an even bigger shock when Naruto's hand became as black as ebony. Slowly the black coloring spread from his hand to the Rasengan, covering it and engulfing it. Soon what was held in Naruto's hand was a shiny black orb. Naruto grinned as he held the orb in hand. Gaara looked on in shock, he didn't know why, but he felt a serious sense of danger from that attack. Naruto threw the orb into the air. Raisin shot! As it came down, he spun and kicked it hard towards Gaara. Gaara quickly put up a heavy defense, which took the form of Shikaku. The raisin shot began to slowly grind through the sand, before exploding, destroying the sand and blinding everyone with a cloud of sand. Suddenly Gaara heard a voice in front of him. "It's over, Gaara." Gaara looked down to see Naruto in front of him in an II stance. "Starburst!" Naruto drew a shining Shingetsu and began to quickly slash at Gaara. Each slash left a glowing line behind. Naruto's strikes were so fast they couldn't be seen, only the glowing lines were seen. Naruto received his blade, a glowing kanji for the word star floating in the air, his sand armor almost completely destroyed. Naruto backflipped away and made a hand sign. "Katsu!" The kanji exploded, sending Gaara flying back where he landed on the ground and slowly rolled. He had been knocked out by the final attack. Naruto landed on the ground and sheathed Shingetsu. He did his best to keep from revealing the toll that his attacks had done to him. His right hand was trembling slightly. He had burned his chakra coils in that hand slightly. Hopefully it would be healed by the time the finals arrived. He wasn't at all used to mixing chakra and haki together, not to mention using the starburst right after. It was no wonder his arm was damaged. Q checked on Gaara before signaling for the medics to take him away. "Winner by knockout, Naruto Uzumaki." In Kagebox, Baki sighed as he said, "Gaara put up a good fight, but Uzumaki-san is one of the worst possible matchups for him. But I was surprised Uzumaki-san could use the Rasengan." Jiraiya nodded. "Yep, I taught him how to do it. The poor boy is a prodigy, he managed to learn it in less than a month." I turned to him as he asked, "How did he launch it, and what was the black coloring?" Jiraiya frowned as he said, "I honestly have no idea. He never showed that during his training with me, most likely it's a new thing." I shook his head. "I stand by what I say, that kid is scary." Naruto slowly walked back to the fighter box, trying not to move his arm too much. "Kid, you know that was pretty reckless." Ever since the incident on Thunder Peaks a month ago, Kurama was able to talk to Naruto clearly. He was also able to see and hear what Naruto did. Although the ancient fox still spent most of his time sleeping, Naruto really couldn't blame him at times. "Sorry about that, Kurama. How bad is the damage?" "Not too bad, it should be healed by the time the final round starts. It would be healed much quicker if the cage was open." "Don't worry, Kurama, Pervy Sage said he would give me the key on my birthday. He just needs to negotiate permission to use the Jinchuruki training ground Kumo has. I look forward to it. I will enjoy stretching my legs." Naruto walked into the fighter's box just as Q's voice sounded. "Will Samui, Tamari Sabaku, and Hinata you'll please enter the arena?" Naruto smiled at Hinata as he said, "Good luck, Hinata-chan." Soon the three kunoichi were all standing in the arena, arranged in a triangle, making sure their two opponents were in sight. They had all drawn their weapons and were prepared for this battle. Q spoke up. "Are all three fighters ready?" After getting their confirmation, he raised his hand and said, "Let the 8th match of the Chuunin Exam finals begin." After Q left the arena, the three kept watching each other, none of them wanting to make the first move. Hinata's Byakugan studied both girls. "Tamari is the bigger threat if I leave her alone. I need to take her out first, but I have to be careful Samui doesn't interfere." Samui watched both her opponents, her tanto held in front of her, ready to parry any strikes. "Yul is the bigger threat, but I can't take her down safely with Sabaka still in this match. Her long range would interfere in our battle. I need to take down Sabaku first, then face Yul." Tamari was tense. She knew that very likely she would be targeted first. Even if she somehow won this match, she would have to face Naruto. She decided she would try her best to prove herself worthy of being a Chunin. Tamari was the first to act. With a wave of her fan she sent a blast of wind towards her two opponents, both who jumped out of the way, before rushing towards her. She frowned as she tried to keep distance, releasing blasts of wind and backtracking. The two kunoichi kept dodging the blasts of wind as they moved towards Tamari. As Tamari was getting ready to fire a blast at Samui, Hinata's hand flickered forward and Tamari let out a cry of pain as a samban embedded itself in her right shoulder. Tamari gritted her teeth as she pulled out the samban with her still working hand. Sadly, this meant she had to drop her large fan. Once the samban was pulled out, she reached into her fan and pulled out a small fan. She wouldn't be able to do as much damage with this, but she would give them both a parting gift before surrendering. She flipped the fan into the air and bit her thumb. When it came back down, she grabbed it and opened it, smearing blood on it as she did. She then swung the fan, activating the special seal on it. Summoning Blade Dance! This technique produced a small whirlwind, from which a weasel with a sickle appeared. The weasel began to spin, increasing the whirlwind's size and targeting Tamari's two enemies. Samui dodged the whirlwind but not completely. A blade from it managed to hit her right leg, cutting deeply. The whirlwind focused on Hinata through, seeing her as the bigger threat, thanks to her defeating Tamari before. Hinata dodged what she could, even blocking some of the blades with Hinode. Each blade of wind launched made the whirlwind smaller. As it got close to her height, the weasel let out a loud sound and the whirlwind dispersed, launching all the blades at her. Hinata was unable to dodge all of them. She coated herself in chakra and began to spin. Rotation! A dome of chakra appeared and blocked all the blades of wind. She only stopped spinning when all the blades were gone. The weasel disappeared in a puff of smoke. As the weasel summon had been focused on Hinata, Tamari had been forced to try and hold off Samui. Sadly, she failed and she was knocked out by a powerful lightning ninjutsu. Moments later, Hinata stopped spinning. She saw that Samui had knocked out Tamari and rushed towards her. Her staff clashed with Samui's tanto. Hinata disengaged from the tanto and threw a palm strike at Samui's chest. Samui weaved out of the way and slashed at Hinata's stomach, her tanto glowing with lightning, but it was blocked by the butt of Hinata's staff. Hinata broke from the clash and spun her staff to knock away the tanto. As she did, her fingers lanced out and managed to clip Samui's torso. While she didn't get a chakra point, she still released a pulse of chakra to attack her. Samui twitched in pain. She could feel the chakra burning in her side. It seemed that Yul was using fire chakra for her Junken strikes. She couldn't fight it, but she knew it would burn out after a few minutes. Till then, she would have to deal with the pain. Samui leaped back and quickly rushed through hand signs before taking in a deep breath. Lightning style, false darkness. With those words, she shot a lightning spear from her mouth at Hinata. Hinata performed a rotation to block the lightning spear. Once she stopped spinning, she threw something out her hand, releasing an air palm. Samui dodged the air palm, but didn't notice the senbon that was tossed at the same time until it was almost too late. She managed to dodge the senbon hitting a chakra point, but instead it stuck in her arm and began to burn. She grit her teeth again as she pulled it out. Yul was using fire chakra in the senbons as well. The two clashed again. Hinata had the much longer reach, while Samui's tanto was quicker. The fight had been going on for close to 5 minutes. The two were in what appeared to be a stalemate, but Samui knew she was losing. She was tiring quickly, and her movement was already becoming slower. She knew she would make a mistake soon, and when she did, the fight would be over. She couldn't even get enough distance to launch some ninjutsu. It was a minute later that it happened. Samui's foot caught on a hole in the ground, the same hole where the sand that had grabbed Shino came from. She fell back, unable to regain her balance. Hinata took that moment and lunged forward. As she did, her free arm was clad in blue chakra that formed a lion head. Gentle step, lion fist! Her fist impacted on Samui, the chakra increasing the force of her strike, causing Samui to hit the ground hard and crater the ground. The crater was nowhere near the size of the ones left behind by Lee and Naruto's fight. Q jumped into the arena and checked Samui. Both Tamari and Samui are unable to continue. The winner by knockout is Hinata Yul. Kagebox, a turn to Jiraiya. Well, you guessed the final match, Jiraiya. Shame we didn't actually bet anything. Jiraiya nodded as he said. Her lion fist is getting more destructive. Baki looked at Jiraiya. I have never seen that technique before. What in the world was it? Jiraiya chuckled. I can't go too deep into detail, but basically it's a fusion of Hinata's fighting style with Tsunade's super strength technique. Sadly, according to her, she's nowhere near finished with it. Tsunade's certain that Hinata will surpass her. Baki looked towards the arena with a smile. I look forward to seeing the final match. In the arena, Naruto and Hinata were both in the arena facing each other. Q looked at the two as he said, Are both fighters ready? Naruto nodded. I am ready. I am as well. Q raised his hand. Then let the final battle of the Chuunin Exams begin. Naruto and Hinata both looked at each other. The two stared for a few seconds, causing the tension to build in the audience. That's when they made their move. It was time to end the Chuunin Exams. Rock, paper, scissors. Everyone in the stadium fell flat on their face. The only ones still standing were Kakashi, Guy, Kurinai, Jiraiya, and Tsunade. In the Kage box, He was laughing his ass off as the guards and Baki slowly climbed back up from the ground. Jiraiya, I like that student of yours. Jiraiya nodded, barely managing to stop laughing as he said. I wasn't really expecting a fight between the two. But I wasn't expecting them to decide the fight like this. I grinned as he said. Well, I guess we can say for certain that Naruto is an Uzumaki clan member. I bet his ancestors are laughing themselves senseless in the Pure Land. Although I have a feeling Hinata's ancestors are probably spinning in their graves. Jiraiya grinned. You would be surprised. Hinata's mother was known for the fact she helped Kushina with a few of her pranks back in the day. Baki climbed back into his seat. Well, that is quite the memorable way to end a Chuunin exam finals. Jiraiya nodded. Yep, those two are definitely going to be Chuunin. With the Konoha Genin and Jonin, Kakashi was chuckling while Might Guy was standing up yelling about the youthfulness of this conclusion. Kurenai was trying her hardest to stop giggling, but she was having a hard time. Asuma climbed back into his seat before looking at Kurenai. You and Kakashi knew about this beforehand, didn't you? Kurenai nodded. Apparently Naruto and Hinata both decided if they ended up facing each other in the finals, they would choose the winner that way. Kakashi nodded with an eye smile. It was actually Naruto's idea. Hinata went along with it because she thought it would be funny. In the arena, Q was confused but he spoke slowly. Well, it seems that Naruto Uzumaki is the winner of the Chuunin exam finals. Naruto didn't hear him. Naruto was too busy laughing his ass off. Hinata was giggling as well. They hadn't expected this to work quite so well. Omake, Naruto's first team mission as a Chuunin, Naruto had returned from the Chuunin exams a week ago. 4 genin had been promoted, Hinata, Niji, Rock Lee, and himself. Over the past week Naruto had helped to teach students in the academy like before. But today was the students' day off, and he had special plans for today. He was meeting the Konohamaru Corps at the training ground he had taught them tree walking at. Today would be a very fun day. Naruto got a surprise when he arrived at the training ground. He was expecting 3 kids waiting there for him. But instead he had found 4 of them. Hanabi had apparently come along with the Konohamaru Corps to join in on their stealth lesson. Naruto, to be completely honest, quite like Hanabi, she was like the little sister he never had. With Hayashi cracking down on the clan elders after Hinata's banishment, the girl was allowed to act like a kid again. She was also often seen in the company of Konohamaru, who both Naruto and Hinata were sure she had a massive crush on. She had even given him a nickname, Kono-kun. Naruto smiled at the 4. Well, I wasn't expecting to see you here, Hanabi. The young girl blushed before she said. I heard Kono-kun talking about meeting you for a stealth lesson. I asked to come along because I wanted to learn as well. All shinobi in the village agreed, most grudgingly, that Naruto was the undisputed master of stealth in the village. Even the Hyuga had trouble finding him at times. This was back when he wore bright orange. Ever since changing his attire, Naruto had reached a whole new level of stealth. The few pranks that had happened in the village since he became a genin were suspected of being committed by him, but no one could find proof. Naruto shrugged as he said, I don't mind, but just so you know, this stealth lesson, your dad might not exactly approve of it. Naruto's idea of a stealth lesson involved pranking the people of Konoha. I don't mind, I want to get better at stealth. Naruto grinned as he said, Well then I guess we better start. With those words he pulled out 6 scrolls and placed them on the training log that was beside him. So as Konohamaru can tell you, most of these stealth lessons are trials by fire. I give you the basic knowledge you need, then you each will follow the instructions in the scroll. In those scrolls contain your pranking targets. Don't worry, Hanabi, I will help you with your targets since this is your first lesson. Now pick your scroll. He gestured to the 6 scrolls he had set out in front of them. They each picked one of the scrolls and Naruto sealed away the other 2. They were all prepared beforehand and he had close to 20 left. As the students pulled out the instruction scroll from their dossier, Naruto unsealed the advanced scrolls from them. These were his stealth missions, to help keep himself in shape. He wasn't going to let his students have all the fun. The Konohamaru squad all grinned after reading their targets, while Hanabi was surprised at seeing the target she had picked. Konohamaru had drawn the Sarutobi clan compound. Moegi had gotten the academy. Udan had drawn the Nara clan ranch. While Hanabi had drawn the public library, the civilian library, not the shinobi one. Naruto's own missions made him grin. The 4 advanced stealth missions were hitting the Hyuga compound, the shinobi library, the Hokage tower, and the Umbu base. Today would be very fun. Are you all ready? They all nodded as they closed up their scrolls. Good, Hanabi, I will be helping you with your mission since this is your first lesson. Now we will strike tonight, does everyone understand? The village of Konoha was in chaos. Various clans had been hit by pranks in the middle of the night along with multiple other buildings. In total 8 places had been hit. The Sarutobi clan had woken up to find their compound now surrounded by cardboard cutouts of tropical trees with bananas hanging from them. All the male Sarutobi clan members, except Konohamaru, had been dressed as monkeys. Asuma found himself dressed as a silverback gorilla and his cigarette replaced by fakes that released bubbles when smoked. Iruka had arrived at the academy to find it had been painted an eye-burning orange, and all the windows had been covered by wood that was painted a bubblegum pink. It was quite horrifying to look at. But the inside was even worse. Each room had been changed in a different way. Some looked like jungles, others looked like a beach. There was even one that looked like a prison. The Naras woke up and found their home was painted floor to ceiling and wall to wall with abstract art that was so random that Vincent van Gogh would have gotten vertigo looking at it all. They couldn't help themselves but to look for patterns and soon were screaming out, running, or literally getting sick on the floor just looking at the paintwork. It was horrific, and the clan head Nara Shikaku did the only thing he could do. He ordered every member of the Nara household out to buy paint and brushes to cover this abomination. Sadly for them, someone had destroyed all the cans of paint in every store. This would lead to the Nara clan being forced to camp outside in tents for a week. The civilian library had been painted to look like a blue birthday cake. The pipes on top of said building now looked like candles. Over the entrance of the library were the words, "Eat me," painted in big white letters. This message was added by Naruto after the fact. The Hyuga clan adults had woken up to find sunglasses stuck to their face, and a white cane stuck to their hands. To make matters worse, all the adult members had their undergarments changed. The men having women undergarments in their drawers, while the women had men's undergarments in theirs. This led to quite a few accusations of perversion in the Hyuga clan that morning. The children of the clan were unhit, and were able to watch the chaos in peace. The shinobi library had been repainted to look like a ship. Naruto had also somehow managed to get some flag poles on top of it, and turn them into sails. Over the entrance was the figurehead, that of what looked like a sunflower mixed with a lion. Tenten and Niji, when they saw this, both screamed and ran, suffering from PTSD-type flashbacks. The Hokage Tower had been repainted to look like black stone, with red lines going along it. On top of it was a weird red painted cardboard cutout that looked like a flaming eye with a slit pupil, that actually seemed to look around. Tower of Mordor from Lord of the Rings, complete with Eye of Sauron. Jiraiya had been suffering from a hangover from drinking with Tsunade the night before. He had woken up in bed with her as well. When he saw the new tower, he actually approved of it, and quickly gave the order to leave it alone for the next couple months. All these pranks had been done through special seals that Naruto had made, each of which were on special chakra paper that allowed them to be applied to said location with ease. These seals had the side effect of making the pranks harder to clean up. But the ones who suffered the most were the Umbu. Naruto had snuck in and with the help of his clones had placed special seals on all the Umbu masks he could find. Even some that were being worn by Umbu that were active at the moment. Shortly after the other pranks were causing chaos, all Umbu members were engulfed in smoke. When it cleared, they all found themselves in cosplay of characters from various manga, books, and movies, while their masks had changed into face masks of said characters. There were also quite a few different yokai thrown into the mix. Shortly after this happened, the village of Konoha was treated to a sight they hadn't seen in a while. Naruto being chased by Umbu. This sight was sadly ruined by the fact the 8 Umbu agents currently chasing him were in various cosplay. As Naruto ran away, screaming about being chased by weirdos, he was being followed by 4 women and 4 men. The men cosplay included a Natsu Drangneil, Fairy Tail, Coco, Toriko, Bobo, not even going to bother writing out the series name, you all know it, and Eren Yeager, Attack on Titan. The Eren Yeager Umbu was sadly being affected by the fact the vertical maneuvering equipment actually seemed to work, and would at random fire out an anchor, stalling said Umbu's chase. The women costumes were getting in the way just as much as the men. One of them was dressed as Mary Jane Strauss, Fairy Tail. She was forced to hold up her dress as she ran and hopped across roofs after Naruto. The second was dressed as Patty Thompson, Soul Eater. The third was dressed as a kitsune. Sadly for her, her cosplay was one of the most revealing with the low-cut kimono and the holes cut in the back for the actual moving tails. The final female Umbu was a generic elf from fantasy stories. Sadly for her, a bow and quiver of arrows had been included and was attached to her hands and back with industrial-strength superglue. As they chased Naruto, he would flip and jump from rooftop to rooftop, keeping a hand on his hat, the grin on his face hidden behind his scarf. He was the only suspect, and he would deny it no matter what, and thanks to Kurama, Yamanaka techniques and truth serum were useless against him. "You'll never take me alive!" With those words, Naruto flipped off a roof down to the ground below, only to be ambushed by a group of Umbu, all dressed as clowns or in spandex suits. Everyone outside the alley was treated to the sound of Naruto's protests. "Ah! Come on guys, be reasonable! It was just a joke! Oh! You red-nosed motherfucker! Just because you were picked on in the academy doesn't give you the right to be a prick! I have rights, you know, I have the right to a lawyer. Resisting arrest? Are you crazy? I thought you had to be fit to be an Umbu, maybe you should cut down on the dango. You want resisting arrest? I'll show you resisting arrest. Let me go, you masked perverts. Handcuffs? Kinky, I didn't think anyone beside Anko was into that. Wait, what the fuck is the rubber glove for? I refuse to let you bastards give me another cavity search. Bad Umbu. Down, no dango for you. After this scene, Naruto would spend 10 hours in interrogation, where not even Ibiki would be able to make him admit to doing the pranks. It was just another day in Konoha.